Is it really? Oh, interesting.
Let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay, we're recording.
All right, great. All right, we're getting started a little bit late on this one. Thanks for your patience. We're going to call the regularly called meeting to order at 5:15. Let's do a roll call again.
Sheena Martinez, District 1.
Paul Carey, District 2.
Philip King, District 3.
Todd Shearhart, District 4.
Herb Dyer, District 5.
And Darren Trotter, Mayor, all present. Please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please remain standing for the invocation.
Be aware, God does look over us. And God, help us in our deliberations. Help us be mindful of our citizens and the responsibilities we have to move forward with our decisions that we hope will be the benefit of our citizens. Amen.
Thanks, Phil.
All right, let's start with citizens' comments.
My name is Patrick Connor. I live at 811 Washington Streets, and I'm here as Parks Advisory Board. I have, first thing I would like to talk about is I want to recommend Marcus Fuentes for the vacancy. He's been on the board before, and I hope you would approve him again. The other two things I have are on the schedule for the parks update, and I can either talk about those now or when those come up on the agenda.
Your preference.
Okay.
Or both. Or both, yeah.
So the first thing is is this on?
I can just barely hear you.
Okay.
It's on, but you need, yeah, talk.
All right. How about now? We good?
Better.
The one thing on the agenda was the fence and the information kiosk. And I want to let y'all know that Devin has been working with the park board and the Friends on that. He did come to the meeting. They had one on the right side and the weather tore it down, so they moved it over. They were having parking problems with parking behind the swimming pool, so we wanted to put up a fence to keep that from happening. The other thing I wanted to bring up is the master plan project. I've been working with a consultant this week, last week, and the next 2 weeks. We should have a final draft ready to go to the steering committee by the last week in August. And that's it.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have anybody else? All right, next item. We have a consent agenda for several items. The minutes for June 22nd, 2021, regularly called special meeting, or council meeting, sorry. Minutes for July 6th, 2021, special called council meeting. Minutes for July 13th, 2021, regular called council meeting. The third quarter financial report and the third quarter investment report. Any discussion? All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as prepared.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We're going to do a little...
You can continue with it. The two items I talked about, don't worry about moving those if you want.
Okay.
Only the ones you mentioned.
All right, so we're going to move item number 12 up. So this is consider and take appropriate action on an ordinance amending the ordinance 2009-007, granting an electric franchise to City Public Service, CPS, and increasing the franchise fees to 5.5%.
I know this has been an item that we have talked about a couple different times.
Yeah, no, look, you're not the only one that has to do that. Thank you, Patrick, or thank you, Deborah. We've talked about this a couple different times. This is about us basically raising or amending our franchise fee agreement with CPS to increase the fee in those areas where our CCN does not apply. We aren't. This is just within our city limits, but not within our electrical CCN. And I understand that that's confusing for folks, especially at home or haven't been in this world. But the city has a territory that it can operate in for electric, water, and sewer. And for the electric, that doesn't cover the entire city limits. So on the west side of the city, east side of the city primarily, where a lot of that commercial is. So think about Bush's Chicken and Sonic and Walmart and that towards that area, and where a lot of the new development is planned to come, where we've got these housing developments that are looking at developing out there. That would all be within the CPS electric territory. Our current rate is 5.5%, and we're looking at raising it by 1%. I believe that's correct, right?
Current 4.5.
See, I've confused myself multiple times. So 4.5 is what we're currently, and then we'd raise it to 5.5 by 1 percentage point. It's not a lot of money. It's about $4,500. It's just rough math and what it would equate to, but it's more than a steak dinner, as I said before. So something that we're legally allowed to do. We do have a couple of representatives from CPS here this evening. If you have any questions for them, I know they're well versed on this and probably can address any concerns that you may have.
And just to be clear to anybody that's watching, if you don't get a CPS electric bill, this doesn't affect you. If you get a Castroville electric bill, you're not affected by this. Any questions?
No
I think we've been
questions,
pretty
Jimmy?
clear on this. That's about it. All right.
Questions?
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the ordinance to adjust the electric franchise fee on CPS services to 5.5%.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Great. Thank you. That was easy, right?
Thank you, ladies, for being here. Sorry we didn't.
Very good.
Thanks for visiting us.
Let me just get hooked up here real quick.
Back to where we were.
Sign each other.
No, he's freelancing. We all know about that.
All right. Mayor's report. So my goal was to get this in 3 minutes. I'm going to go way over that, but I'll try and move it along. Today, it's pretty short today. We're going to talk about tourism and just briefly discuss the town hall meeting on River Bluff Power. So on tourism, we're going to talk about revenue benefits, current and future tourism, and a big event, Eclipse 2024. All right. So I will assert that Castroville should support our local businesses through tourism. It generates revenue for the general fund. It allows us to have better amenities. It gives us more fun things to do locally. And it gives us bragging rights. Nobody brags to their friends about the really reliable electrical system that they have, or we talk about the fun things that we do and the great things that you can see and do in Castroville. So I think it's a positive all around. So let's talk about the funds that it generates. When you look at the total general fund revenue, now this is everything except for the enterprise fund, so no airport, no utilities, this is everything else. Out of that, if you see on the right is the blue, I'm going to talk about this number a couple of times, it's just over $2 million. If you saw during the budget workshop, that actual number's more, it's a little bit closer to $3 million, but this is what we've got budgeted right now. So we'll talk $2 million on this. That's over half of our general fund revenue comes specifically from businesses. So how does that break down? Annual revenue from businesses, property tax, you can see property tax, Sales tax, hotel motel, that's specific use funds, but that's about what it is. Totals, again, just over $2 million. How does that break down? In terms of property tax, the total collected for residential property tax is $455,000, just over. So 62% of our property tax comes from businesses. 100% of our sales tax, at $1.2 million, comes from businesses. Hotel occupancy tax, 100% comes from businesses. Again, it's just over $2 million, generated by our businesses that go into the city budget. So what does this mean to us? If we help our businesses increase their sales by 10%, that buys us a traffic officer. That's complete person, weighted cost with benefits, with training and equipment and a car. That's full just by increasing the sales of our local businesses by 10%. If you increase it by 50%, that's almost equal, that's really, really close to our current streets budget. So you could apply it to that. And we can go on, but just any increase that we can do to help our local businesses increase their revenues, it gives us additional amenities, parks. You talk about Lions Park, wanting to do something with that. We've talked about sports fields. Herb's talked a lot about the CCC, the amenities that we have here, and just general beautification. Councilman King was talking about doing the historic signs for each side of town. So all of these amenities, all of these additional things are paid for out of the general fund. And while we do that, it creates jobs, it creates opportunities, it allows our folks to stay employed here instead of having to go elsewhere. And these opportunities start building upon themselves. So as you start, you get this residual effect of the businesses get busier, people come in, they see that, they say, hey, I think another business that would do well here is this, so you'll get more businesses, and it feeds itself. So how do we better reap the benefits? You like my little, so I did this on purpose. This is a picture of a town analysis with the vines. We're going to reap I thought I was good.
I can visualize those coming off of Cross Hill down, and there's some.
There you go, with money coming off of them. So how do we better reap the benefits? I'm going to talk to you about, now this is the concept of a tourism board. It would be another city board. We'll talk about what is it, how is it funded, what does it do, and who would populate the board. We have had historically some problems populating the board, but I think this one would be filled up very quickly with a lot of people being interested in it. So, what is it? Okay, I talked about that already. How is it funded? So, Scott had talked about funding out of service level
adjustments.
adjustments.
SLAs.
Basically increasing the budget funds. I'm not even talking about doing that. I'm talking about taking our existing funds, the hot funds right now, a lot of that is already dedicated, but they would oversee the hot fund distribution and work with city staff on that. Also find additional funding sources for events, for tourism events. And that would be through the same way that they're doing it right now. I mean, Arnie's been all over this for years. And even as CADC had stepped out of the tourism business, these things continue to happen. So donations, grants, event charges, there's a lot of additional funding sources that you can leverage for that. What does it do? So it coordinates multi-day events. Right now, a lot of our events are standalone events. With the hotel occupancy tax, actually one of the core tenets of it, the Texas two-step, the first tenet is that it has to put heads in beds. So what does that are multi-day events, things that can happen, even if it's not the same event. If you can create an event on Friday night and on Saturday night and then something happening on Sunday, it gives people a chance to stay multiple days. You do a week-long event, you get people staying here for the entire week. So it does create additional heads in beds, and again, that's self-propagating. You put more heads in beds, you get more hotel occupancy tax, you have more money for advertising for our local businesses. While they're here, they spend money at the local businesses. They eat at the restaurants, they shop at the shops, they go for coffee, they leave their money here. The board would oversee advertising. This is the funds that are available, spending on advertising. They would brainstorm, they would come up with new ideas to help our businesses. who would be on the board. So these are some ideas. I think that we need to have somebody from the hotel because a lot of this is centered around the hotel occupancy tax, and I think that's a key part of generating that tourism is having a place to stay. The Chamber of Commerce, their sole mission should be to helping out the local businesses, so they would be perfect for this. Economic development, because again, as you get more people that are coming in, they see the great things that we've got, they can assist with that. Advertising and communication, I think that's kind of a no-brainer, being able to actually get the word out to people outside of this area so that they know about what's going on. And then the other business owners, active residents, since I've even introduced the concept of the tourism board, I've talked to a few different people about it, and there's a lot of interest in this. I think that it's something great to see people wanting to get involved with this. I'll go over this really quickly. We have recurring events already. I don't have all of them. The next ones that are coming up, St. Louis Day, that's a 2-day event, Alsatian Festival and the Backyard Concert. That is 2 pieces of a 3-day event. We have Halloween, we have Fiorella Friday, all of these things that are happening right now that we can work with the teams that are actually putting them together, and they could help centrally coordinate a lot of those efforts. And you saw this effect with July 4th. I think that we can do a better coordination, but it took multiple people, Devin working from the city, the chamber working on the parade, and this just helps grow even more collaboration with that. But what are we missing? Groundhog Day. I just thought that was funny, so I threw that in. But Super Bowl, Valentine's Day, all of these different hotels, or all of the different holidays that we've got, and some other ideas, concerts in the park, movies in the park, events in the square.
Tour to Castroville.
Tour to Castroville. I told you it wasn't complete, but that's part of the Poppy Festival. I'm just making an excuse for not getting everything on there. I just couldn't fit everything. So you get the idea. So to do this, we've got to manage for success. Things have got to be well planned. We need to emphasize a low impact to others. As we're bringing in tourists from out of town, we need to make sure, like we found this during the first Fiorella Friday as it got started back up. We didn't do quite enough coordination with some of the local entities, and we caused some issues with it. And so we've got to coordinate to make sure that we are anticipating, understanding, and communicating with anybody that has impact. Also, the people that live here, we don't want to have driveways blocked and all of that stuff. So we need to have really good coordination to do that. I'd like to see a unified community events calendar. The chamber keeps something like this. There's all kinds of different ways that we can do this, but I think this is what the tourism board can work with, since we would have people from across several different organizations figure out how to keep all of that in one collective area. And cross-organization collaboration. I've preached this for as long as I've been here. Get the chamber working with the city, working with economic development, working with the hotel, working with the local businesses, the churches, the nonprofits, getting everybody working together, and this would help toward that. Always safety-minded, because with events come additional dangers, and purposeful. Doing things with a meaning for a purpose, and doing it on purpose. So we've got yes, I know, I'm repetitively repeating. So we've got a great opportunity for this. I don't know if you've heard of Eclipse 2024. If you want to learn more about it, go to eclipse2024.org. This is happening on April 8th, 2024. It is a full eclipse. There's going to be a partial eclipse the year before, but this is a full eclipse. It's a big deal. There are people that follow this across the globe. So if you look at it, this is a kind of a Texas-wide view. That blue line in the middle is the greatest point of, so this is the area of the path of totality. In that path, you can see we're down just west of San Antonio. We are in that path of totality where the sky will go dark. A little bit closer view of this, you can see Castroville up. I don't have my pointer on, but you can see where Castroville is. Down at the bottom. Sorry. Yeah.
Sheena's got you covered.
Thank you. Hey, it works on this screen. So if you look down at the bottom, you see Duration right where her shadow was. We've got just about 2.5 minutes of total darkness. Hondo's going to have a little over 3 minutes of total darkness. So preparations are already going on for this. We are coordinating on a regional level, so through Hill Country Alliance, they're working with all of Hill Country. We're working at a county level for Medina County, across the cities in Medina County. Even the ones that aren't in the path of totality, they will be affected by this because they have lodging and they have other things to do, so they're going to be involved with it. We have community, so Hondo and Castroville are probably going to be tied in really close and do some joint marketing on that 90 corridor from Castroville to Hondo. I think we've got some great opportunities to bring in the corn maze, to bring in the golf course. These aren't things that, obviously, they're not directly in the city, but people are going to be coming here to shop, to eat, to have a really good time. So we will be coordinating with these on event ideas, on safety. ESD is going to be involved with this. We are anticipating a lot of people. We have to deal with transportation. These people are, a lot of people that are coming from other areas are used to picking up an Uber and driving over, and they will be in a sad state of affairs if they expect that when they come here. So we're going to have to figure out a way to get people around. We have joint marketing opportunities and combined resourcing as we start getting ready for this. There are ways that we can combine our resources and get economies of scale. We'll be identifying fundraising opportunities, coming up with merchandising opportunities, and that's where that combined resourcing comes in. Working with the hotels on lodging. We'll probably have to do additional RV locations. We can do some dry RV locations, tent camping. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening with this. I was thinking how great it would be to invite our friends and family from Alsace to come down here and enjoy this with us. I think there's also going to be opportunities if people want to do like Airbnb for this. It'll be quite an event. So some examples of other states. I'm a little bit off the screen here, so thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, that'll work. So South Carolina at a statewide, over 1 million visitors. They achieved $269 million in travel expenses. It was the greatest single tourist event on record in South Carolina. With Wyoming, they had, just over 250,000 visitors. 29,000 of those were international. They derived $2.3 million in tax revenues. When we look at some city examples, Carbondale, Illinois, population of 25,000 people, they had over 50,000 visitors during that three-day event. Direct revenue estimated almost $8 million for that town. Hopkinsville, Kentucky, population 30,000. They had a big metro area around them, so the impact to them was a lot more, but they derived around $23.5 million in economic impact. So this is these are great things. Just wanted to get everybody prepped. I've already sent portions of the presentation out to some of the local business owners. I know that Deborah and Scott have been involved with this actually for a good amount of time, and I'd like to see us concentrate on that tourism aspect of that. That's all I've got to say about that. Okay, so next, let's talk about the River Bluff. I love that picture so much I had to put it on here.
One of your early pictures when you were a kid?
Exactly. What I stated at the town hall is, this is how I feel, this is how I look when people tell me that there are bad things that are going to happen that I don't want, that I don't like, that I'm not expecting. And so we're trying to avoid that by really communicating really well. This is on the town hall that we had last week. We've got another one that's coming up. So future activities with the TARDIS. I keep thinking of the hotel. So we began getting feedback on the 20th. We'll continue to do that. We'll continue to reach out and get that feedback on the initial thoughts. We just explained what some of the possibilities were. So staff is going to work with our engineer on finalizing the validation, what all needs to be done, what are our options. We'll do a finalized phasing approach. You can't do everything all at once, so how is that phased? The way that it was phased out before was by sections over multiple years. I don't think that's the best, most economical approach. I think that we need to take a look at another one, and so they're working on that. We've got to determine what our funding strategy is going to be, spending out of our balances or doing some debt servicing. And then once we get all of that put together, we're going to present the options at a town hall. So we're going to bring it back to the citizens of River Bluff and the rest of the city because we all bear this burden. Before we come back to council for a decision, before we decide which way we're going, we're going to talk to people and make sure that we are doing the will of the people. And then once we make that decision, we're going to track it to completion. I put the exclamation mark there because I know that Councilwoman Martinez, that's been one of her biggest frustrations with this, and I think that we've seen this before with streets too, with the commitments that are being made that in the past that haven't necessarily come to fruition, so we want to make sure that we stay on top of that. All right, so that's all I got. Next item. So we're going to go to, here, I'll unplug that.
Did you want
Discussion.
to entertain any discussion of the things you presented?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did you?
Well, I mean, I always ask you
took
all.
up
You
his
didn't ask.
3 minutes.
Okay.
I took
Y'all
up
ready to
over
move
my
on?
3 minutes. Here you go.
All right.
I was pretty close to that. So 3 minutes.
Not bad.
I was tracking. I thought it was going to be 15, but
I was tracking you.
Todd's got his timer out on his phone. All right. Any discussion about any of that? All right, great. Thank
How
you.
long was it, Todd?
Thank you.
17 minutes.
How long was it?
17 minutes.
He and I are going to have a competition. Who can get it shorter?
That would be a competition, that's for sure.
All right. So next item, we're going to have a discussion and take appropriate action on setting the tax rate for FY 2021/2022 proposed tax rate and setting a time, date, and place for
Thank
2
you.
public hearings on the tax rate if required.
Sorry, I'm about to do some more slides.
Sure.
Nice try. We can slide it back over, Todd. For some reason, my screen's smaller than his. Different hardware. That's perfect. Sir. So this was the part that I warned you in the budget workshop I might not get to. I have a number of slides on this. Some of this you've seen before, some of it's new. We just got our updated information from the appraisal office yesterday morning. But just to kind of recap, general fund, when we talk about capital funding, and the reason I'm bringing this up as part of the tax rate is you'll see in a minute, the biggest part of the tax rate, what we're going to talk, what I'm going to encourage you to think about and talk about a lot is not the O&M rate. We've done our job to try and keep that O&M rate down, and you'll see that we did. It's really, what are you going to do with that INS rate? Are we going to leave where it's at, or do you want to add to it? And we have some room to add to it. But just to remind you, general fund, for capital funding, it's tax supported through that INS rate, the interest and sinking. That's the fund that's set up to pay for bonds when you joint issue bonds or tax notes or any other borrowed funds. The utility fund, on the other hand, is rate supportive. So they don't have a separate rate for debt service. It's all, they calculate what their costs are and they build the rates around that. And of course, we're going through that rate model now. Both pay debt service with fund balance reserves, or at least they can, because we have substantial reserves in those funds. So for instance, if you wanted to go issue more debt than our, let me think about this. If you wanted to go issue more debt than you wanted to try and pay for with the tax rate, you could pay for it with fund balance for a period of time. You can't do it indefinitely, but you pay for it for a period of time. And it's just one way to kind of play with that rate and figure out what is comfortable, what rate you want to try and do. For your information, the general fund has $3,152,476. That was the audited cash on hand available fund balance. Now, we want to try and keep at least 90 days to 120. 120 is preferable, but we have a lot more than that on hand. We are going to add somewhere, if we close the books today, it's one of the texts I was sending earlier to Leroy is, where are we at? Because I know it's something he and I talked about. I didn't get the number from him. If we close the books today, he estimates it's around $700,000 in additional fund balance. So when I was talking about earlier, Phil, we'll take care of the $20,000 signs. I mean, that's a cash purchase item in my mind that we may not be able to do it in this budget year. And just don't be scared of amending the budget when the new year starts. We'll talk about uses of that cash, and there'll be some one-time purchases. The kiosk is one we're talking about later tonight that I think are appropriate to use that fund balance for. It's a one-time purchase. It's cash that we don't have budgeted. Use it for that purpose. And in effect, that's what happens. Like So even if we were to we were able to spend that money, Phil, between now and the end of the year, and it were $20,000 for the signs, we would actually amend the budget before we close the books entirely to show that you authorized and we spent $20,000 on that line item. And the same thing would happen with the kiosks. And then the utility fund has 3.7 million. Theirs is, the cost to run the utility fund is a lot higher, however. I mean, we're a $4 million fund, they're a $7 million fund, so they don't have nearly as many days. This is what debt service costs run right about now. I told you I'd kind of mark. I would mark things out and replace them if I got updated figures. So that's what this is. Your $1 million of debt, I'm still, again, estimating conservatively. Like I said, it could be $58,000 to issue $1 million if we went to the markets in December, if the markets didn't change drastically now and then. But a conservative estimate is $72,000 per year for $1 million borrowed for a 20-year period. If you only borrow it for 10 years, obviously you're going to pay more. If you borrow it for 30, you're going to pay a little bit less. So there's a lot of variables right there. A penny of property tax, based on our most recent estimates of what we got for our values, actually equals about $24,000. So if you think about issuing $1 million, you need at least 3 pennies to pay the note on a $1 million issuance. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's updated numbers. So here's our current tax rate. Yeah. Here's our current tax rate. That upper right-hand amount, $224 million, that's our current taxable value. That's what all the buildings, land, personal property that gets taxed with a property tax, that's what it's all worth within the city limits of Castroville. Our O&M rate at the current value, I don't know what that line is, where it is, that's messed up. That O&M rate is 0.4633, that's what it costs for operations and maintenance. Our INS, which is at the lower right-hand side, interest and sinking, it's about 3 cents. That's in our current rate. That's what we charged this past year for a total rate of 0.495. So INS plus O&M equals the total rate, and that's what you see in the middle of the 0.495. I showed this before. This is what happens when values increase. So we now have our what is our real value. I had estimated it like 254. I was looking at the grand totals. I learned, as I spoke with our tax office, they actually they use a more conservative number, and that's why it's 240. So the number that will be used to calculate our rates and to do the truth in taxation calculations that we're required to do as a municipality in Texas will be the certified taxable value of $240,070,532. That is the new value for all the buildings, land, and personal property that is taxed within the city of Castroville. So what happens if we do nothing? Meaning we don't issue any debt. Your O&M rate will fall and your INS rate will fall. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So the do nothing tax rate. Our current certified value, as I said, is 224 versus what we just received on Monday of 240 million. That's an increase of about $16 million or 7.1%. The proposed property tax revenue went down slightly. I had put in, if you looked at if you go look at an old Excel sheet or one of the prior presentations, I had property tax revenue at like $1,138,000. Is that right? Or somewhere around there. Yeah. So it's less than what we had budgeted. So we're going to squeeze the budget in other areas with sales tax and transfers and that kind of thing. But the do nothing tax rate then, this is the no new revenue, basically tax rate of 0.4644. And that's made up of an O&M rate and an interest and sinking rate of 0.438071 and 0.0264. This is what that looks like. So there's your assessed property value, there's your O&M on the upper left-hand side, your INS on the lower right-hand side, and then the middle rate, that's your total tax rate. So that's kind of where we start. That's the option, is adopt that rate. You have a lot of fund balance, a lot of dollars that you don't have plugged anywhere. Use that money and go do what you can capital-wise with that money. It's not what I advise you do, because I think we really need to work on building up the INS. So these are kind of the options as I see them. There's kind of do nothing, meaning, and I don't want to mean that in a derogatory way, I mean, being literal, don't raise the rate, leave it where it is, so you're not doing any new debt, you're not going to do any major street repair, because you're not going to, unless you're going to spend the whole, like, $2 million of your fund balance, you're not going to do anything major. You would end up with a lower rate, and you would continue, more than likely continue to spend fund balance on any major projects. Option number 2, reserve, what I'm calling the historic rate, and I'll show why I call it that in a minute, but that would be 0.5233. Using the updated information that we have for Monday, it's about 5 cents over that keep it flat rate of 0.4644, and it allows you to go and borrow $2.5 million. And we'll talk about, well, what will we do if we borrow $2.5 million, because I don't know. As I stated, when we started the budget process, my goal was to create the opportunity for capital investment and create the opportunity for INS, and that's what this does. That's effectively what we have done. Option 3, then, to raise it to accommodate a larger investment. Just as a reminder that interest and sinking portion of the rate does not count towards that rollback. However, we are capped on how much we can issue based on how much debt that we've already issued is serviceable through the rate. Did I lose anybody on that? I have to tell myself that about 3 times. So we can't just go issue it at any amount. It has to be debt we've already issued, not debt we're planning on issuing, debt we've already issued that is legally can be paid for by the general fund. And we do have a certain amount of debt that falls in that category. It's a little over $300,000. That's where we get the magic rate. So this is what that looks like. Yes, it's a busy slide. I want to point out a couple of things. Upper left-hand corner, O&M, does not change. We're not adding more money to the general fund to go pay for other things. That stays the same. What changes is that INS rate in the lower right-hand corner, interest and sinking, and then, of course, the rate in the middle at the very bottom is a 0 because we don't know what that total rate would be. But your options for the total rate are at its highest is 0.538. That's the max allowable rate without any type of election. So you could adopt that rate and you wouldn't have to worry about the voters passing a petition and forcing you into an election. That's the maximum amount. It's what I'm going to recommend that you set as your proposed rate, because I would not recommend you adopt a rate any higher than that. That would, look at, it's just unrealistic. We don't want to try to put the city in a position where you would have to go to an election or could go to an election. So staying below that rate is advisable at this stage, especially for this city. I have adopted in other cities rates that were higher than the rollback rate, what was then at that time called rollback. We didn't have issues, but here, given your history, I think I would be very careful with that.
We did it here once and we rolled it back.
Right, I'm aware. So that's why I'm saying I don't know that I would try to do that again here. So if 0.538, that's the maximum that your staff is recommending that you'd even consider, and that's what I would suggest you adopt tonight. 0.5233, that's what I'm calling the historic rate. That's because that was what the rate was in 2019. And as you look, as it slides down that line, that's the subsequent years. So in 2019, it was 0.5233. In 2020, it's 0.507. In 2021, it's 0.495. So you can see successively we adopted lower rates. What I'm suggesting is try to peg it back up at 0.5233, lock it in place, and that gives you the ability to go issue $2.5 million worth of debt, roughly. We might be able to issue a little more than that. What that money then would be used on, that's what we'll talk about in the latter part of August and through the month of September, is really kind of honing in on what's important. And that's what the survey that I shared with you all to look at, that's part of it. I purposely did not make a list of projects. I really wanted to know, how are we doing in different areas? What do people, what is our citizenry, what do they care about? And if they had the ability to invest in any broad area, where would it be? Would it be parks? Would it be streets? Would it be police? Where would it be? So I would think, as policymakers, that would be very helpful, just to start with that information. Then from there, once we kind of hone in on what we think the constituents want, what you all want, then I think the next step for staff is to help you develop these plans and take them to maybe the various boards and commissions, and have each of your appointed boards and commissions and yourselves review a list of projects with that data in mind, the kind of the public has spoken, look at developing some kind of plan, and then taking that plan, once we have a idea of what that looks like, back out to members of the public. How that would look, I don't know if we do a survey or what we do, but there's different methodologies that we can pursue. So this is, again, the concept. What this does, you know, the delta between your point that .4644 and that .538, that's 10 cents. Roughly, it's 10 cents that you can put into the INS rate, that interest and sinking. Just for information, this is a slide I showed you last time. The only difference is I tried to put those red boxes around it, make it a little bit easier. These are the current tax rates. This is this past year for Medina County and Bexar County. In Medina County on the left, that larger box on the left, upper left, there's 3 cities that are already over 50 cents. That's half of Medina County that's over 50 cents. On the right, you have Bexar County, and out of that, they have a third of those cities are over 50 cents. And you can kind of see it's San Antonio, Balcones Heights, Castle Hills, Converse, Kirby, Leon Valley, Somerset, and Universal City are all over 50 cents. Some of them, you know, the highest one I think in there is at 75 cents.
Somerset, yeah.
It's pretty high.
And Natalia's at 73.
Yeah, and Natalia in Medina County is at 73, and then of course Devine's right at that 53-cent rate, and Lacoste is at 55. And what I didn't do is put a slide to show you where you would fit, but obviously you'd be lower than the other 3 cities that are over 50 in Medina County, and you'd actually be right in the middle. If you were to do like a median, you'd be right in the middle at the 53-cent rate. Let me see. This is just kind of your the revenue projections. It tells you what the amount of money you would get and how that plays out. I mean, it's really just simple math. If you got the rate's .4644, your tax revenue is $1,051,000. If you had .5233, your tax revenue is $1,256,000. There's no debt, new debt on that right-hand column if you stick with the basic rate. But as you increase the property tax value, that INS portion, we'd be able to issue more and more debt. So it's $2.8 million at the .5233 level and $3.3 million conservatively at the .5381 level. And I think this is my last slide, yeah. And then this is just the impact. Again, it's simple math. It's per $100,000 of valuation. And I understand one of the things that at the next meeting, when we really start trying to set the tax rates, so tonight we're just going to adopt what is the highest rate we'll even consider. At the subsequent meetings, we're going to have public hearings and talk about what rate is actually the rate we want to try and adopt and why do we want to adopt that rate. I'll have a lot more information at those meetings about the median household value, right? I'll probably bring some information about your freezes and your other waivers that you have, exemptions that you have, and the impact those have on your overall value. I'll bring you what your new value is so you can see what that looks like. So I'll really try to break it down a little bit more. But for this evening, I thought it was important just to keep it pretty high level. So increase per year, again, that's what your per $100,000, that's how much more you'd be paying at each of those rates. And your increase per month, if you want to try to think about it in those terms, that's what that would be. And with that, that's what I had prepared for the tax rate discussion. Mayor, I'll throw it back to you.
So the thing that I've said since I got into office, I am not in favor of raising utility rates. I'm not in favor of raising taxes. And I was pretty hard on that. And then I started stepping back from that for a second. So for me, I don't like paying extra. I don't like paying the taxes that I do. But that's me. And so as I started really digging into this and thinking, okay, so I take my own preference away from this and make sure that as a representative of the people that I look out for, what do they want as well? Because this is the entire city coming together and trying to figure out what most everybody needs, wants. And so I don't know for a fact that if we said to all of my neighbors, hey, if you could pay an extra $6 per month and we could have better streets, do you want that? So I don't know that for a fact. And so I have to take a step outside of myself and say, I think that starting from here, we set the maximum, and understanding this is not setting the rate, but it's giving us the absolute maximum that we could go to. You can't go any lower than that. So I think what has historically happened on previous councils is that you set the maximum rate, and you go back and you talk to the people that you represent, and you say, okay, so with all of the conversation that we've had, I think Scott has done a great job of framing that up and giving us a picture of what exactly that looks like. Understanding that this has nothing to do with the utilities or anything around that, it's general fund only. So basically, I think the priorities that I've heard are police, streets, some historic preservation, and some sports stuff. So I think that you go back and talk to folks and say, what is it that you want? What are you willing to fund in terms of, quality of life in Castroville? So that's my thought, but let me hear from you guys. Let's start over on this side. Can we start with her?
Sure. Well, we haven't even started talking about capital yet. That's what's frustrating to me. Now we have the number, which we've been waiting for, so we know the highest tax rate that we can possibly consider. And now we have to go through and do the hard work and figure out where are we going to put the priorities. Because I think we have a lot more things that we need to do than we can afford to do. And we're going to have to decide, do we want to issue more debt, or do we want to not issue more debt? So we've got a lot of discussion to do, and I want to reiterate, we haven't done any of it yet. So it's really hard for me to sit here and form an opinion, but I am at least happy to know that the county comes up with this number. This is not a number that we generate. This is done by the county and tells us what our upper limit is. So now we know what the do-nothing rate is, which is the lower limit, and we know what the upper limit is, and we have to deliberate and figure out what we're going to recommend.
Great, thank you. Councilman Sciarra?
Well, I'm kind of on the same road with Councilman Dyer. We know what the top end is. I would love to say that we like to be at the bottom end, but I don't think we can just sit back and do nothing anymore. I think we've kicked the can down the road so much. I think we can find something middle ground, honestly. I would have to say somebody, that's probably a little older in age. I'll use my parents, for example. They probably don't want to, they don't care about any improvements. It would be my opinion. They use the pool. That's their biggest deal. But, when you sit down, think about it, emergency services is probably a big deal when you get to be of age, so. I think if we can show the ratepayers, ourselves included, some nice new streets and some utility upgrades and things like that, I think that's going to be a big deal.
And remember, this doesn't cover the utilities, so it is, like you said, it's the safety.
Well, no, I'm talking about utility upgrades in River Bluff. I mean, that would be debt. They need it badly, and everybody needs some street work done. So, I think, I don't know, I'd like to hear public opinion. The survey, I think, will shed some light on maybe what we need to do. Maybe they don't want us to spend no money. Maybe they want us to run even keel. But we'll see. But I beg to differ. I think if we don't get too carried away with our numbers, I think they'll let us do those things.
Sorry, I know we haven't talked about capital. I know one item but again, we'll just, you have options. You don't have to go issue debt to do this. But I know the pool building specifically, that we're going to have to make some improvements there. or tear down the building, that kind of thing. I mean, and it's going to be very expensive, and we have to look at replacing it. What would the cost of replacement be? And it may not be millions of dollars. It could be $500,000 or something like that. And we have the cash. If you want to go spend cash and not borrow money to do that, but there are services that people enjoy today, like the pool, that in order to continue to use them, we're going to have to make significant investments in. And the question is, well, do we want to use one-time cash for that, which doesn't get replaced, and under the new model won't get replaced because of how we're sharing costs of utilities going forward, or do you want to issue debt to do that? My thought was putting the city when we're looking at the rate, it's more than just about what we want to do today. It's about what are we positioning ourselves to be able to do in future years. If we don't kind of protect the interest and sinking portion of our rate, it will continue to go down. I don't know if I showed that earlier, but the new rate, if we adopt the lowest, it's 0.0264. It was 0.03. Next year it'll be 0.0253 or something. I mean, it'll just continue to just whittle to almost nothing, and you won't have the same ability 10 years to go and issue debt as you do today, because you are going to have to go to the voters to try and get that done. This is just one way to be able to do it now and preserve a portion of that rate. Even if you don't exactly know how you're going to spend that money, you can create the ability to do that. So that was kind of part of it.
Councilman King?
I think following on to what Scott just said, the city has, if we don't do anything else, the city takes on greater expense each year because the cost of living goes up. Our expenses go up. Gas goes up. City vehicles, police vehicles. So we pay higher wages. We make incentives to keep employees. But if nothing else changed, just cost of living goes up for the city. So we have to raise the tax rate just to keep that. It just so happens, though, because we have been pretty frugal and built up a thing, a little bit of a nest egg. But we could whittle that out and then also be at a lower tax rate because we aren't keeping up with cost of living. I know people last time, 3-4 years ago, I remember citizens came in and screamed at us, I'm on a fixed income. The city's on a fixed income. The only way the city can increase its fixed income, which it has to do to offset our costs that keep going up, is we have to raise the tax rate. And I think if we do that prudently, in little bit at a time, and there are some, of course, with state laws, there are some limitations to raising tax rates, which benefit people when they're older, and some medical disability with veterans and so forth. But so in my mind, if we're going to just be imprudent, we have to raise the tax rate. Otherwise, we're just going to burrow ourselves in the ground, and then to be able to dig this thing out in the future, it's going to be a very large rate. So, so in my mind, yes, I do think we need to raise tax rate. I think with as cheap as interest is right now, we would be foolish not to go out for bond money to do some of these capital programs that we need to do, because money is really cheap now. And we can use that very inexpensive money, and then also future tax rate payers, those citizens that are be moving into our community, help pay for those future payments, because they'll be added to our tax base, which we'll be able to pay off. So with all that said in mind, I think we do need to look at capital, go out for money, for loans, make some very prudent capital programs that we need, and we need to keep up with our cost of living. The only way to do that is to increase our tax rate.
All right, thank you. Councilman Carey?
Councilman King said that we don't want to be digging, we don't want to find ourselves in a hole to dig ourselves out of, but we're already in a hole to dig ourselves out of. We have streets that are on the verge of total collapse. We have electrical systems that are on the verge of total collapse. We have water systems that are on the verge of total collapse. And if we don't get ourselves into a position to start addressing these. We can't address them all at the same time. But again, to reiterate what Councilman King said, prioritize them and attack them. And to do so, we're going to have to bite the bullet and pay an extra $73 a month per,
A month?
I mean, a year, yeah, and no, sorry, I meant a year, against our property values. And, when I look at that and I realize that, between my home and my business property taxes, I'm looking at between $800 and $900 a month already. That's not a significant increase, but it'll get some things done around this city, so I'm going to have to support it.
Right. Councilwoman Martinez?
And I have to go with Councilman King and Councilman Carey. I mean, when we had our torrential downpours, we had people that were getting flooded and everything because the drainage isn't doing
I
what
skipped
it,
that one, yeah.
the drainage isn't like it's supposed to be. The roads, like you said, have been neglected and not maintained properly. Water, electrical, across the board in the city has not been given its attention like it should have been for maintenance and everything all these years. I'm not for raising, the tax rate, but if we don't want to find ourselves in an even worse position, we got to do something. And I know the people in my district, it's, electrical, the roads and everything, they know. And I know in y'all's districts too, everybody, especially the flooding was atrocious across the board, throughout the whole city. So we've got to do something. We really do.
So I think if we summarize, I'm okay with, again, I have my personal preferences. I'm okay with putting those aside for the will of the people. And what I like about, so we briefly talked about this with the survey that Scott's sending out a survey. We need to make sure that everybody gets a chance to look at that survey, to participate in that survey. So what we're doing is we're saying we're going to set our maximum rate, but we're going to go to the people that we represent and say, what do you want? And get that feedback from everybody. Do you feel like the level of service that the city's been providing is enough, or do we need to do more? And where are we willing to put our money where our preferences are, where our needs are? So on that, do we have a motion?
We can't yet. We got to get dates for public hearing number 1 and public hearing number 2. And time.
It's in the
this is-
background. In the background, it says that the staff recommends City Council call public hearings for August 10th and August 24th during the regular scheduled council meetings beginning at 5 p.m. is what the staff, according to the background paper.
Thanks, Sheena.
I've got a question, though. Do you think the public hearing is going to be, this room is probably not going to be adequate for it? Probably ought to be thinking about Braden Keller Center for the public.
Well, they're at the council meetings. These are on council dates, so we're trying not to have to schedule a separate event, and have it at the same meeting. I don't know, I think you might be surprised. I might be surprised, I don't know. I know we had a pretty good turnout for River Bluff, but they all fit in here.
Oh, we had plenty of room for you.
So you're saying 5 p.m. at the council meeting?
Would be during,
5 p.m., August 10th.
August 10th and August 24th?
24th.
it would be during the council meeting at Wisconsin.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we set the FY 21-22 proposed tax rate at 0.5381 and schedule public hearing number 1 on August the 10th and public hearing number 2 on August the 24th in conjunction with the normal city council meeting at 5 p.m. in the council chambers.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, next item, discussion and take appropriate action on setting public hearings or hearings for the proposed FY 2022 annual operating budget.
And similarly here, I think, is it the same dates, or is it? It's the-
Well, we have one for, say, the unofficial one is August 24th,
Mm-hmm.
and then the official one would be September 14th.
And this is what I was saying, I think we have a little bit of time, you know, I mean, we'll hear the tax rates. We won't actually adopt the tax rate until September 24th, right?
September 14th.
Or September 4th.
This is for our budget, and as we, in our tentative calendar, we have down that we will have the budget hearing, and then plus we would adopt the budget, and we would also adopt the tax rate on the 14th of September.
Right.
Okay, so we have budget, and I apologize, I can't remember. We have budget and tax rate adoption both on September 14th, not on the second meeting in September.
Right.
And the second meeting in September is when we were adopting the rates.
That's a regular scheduled meeting.
Both of them are regular scheduled meetings.
Yeah.
It's the second meeting.
So we'll just stay here.
All right, mentally, I was thinking everything was going to be that last meeting in September, but I mean, the good news is we're going to be further along, and I'm going to try to have, I know it's been frustrating, you know, to not have direction on the capital, but there's been a couple of issues. One, I mean, I don't feel like we're behind the ball. From what I told you, I think we're right on schedule from what we're kind of expected us to be. We had a little bit of slowdown with trying to get Amoresco on board, so that slowed us down a bit. And then but that's just one project, and that's utility. And then we had the utility rate study has been a little bit delayed, but again, I built in time for that, so we're okay there. Getting the survey out, we'll start that next week. We'll start to get those responses. We'll probably do about 3 or 4 weeks. I want to get as many responses as we can get, but I'd like to get at least 400 to make it a valid sample and to be able to provide you that information. We'll start talking more about the rate and its effect on the populace and all that stuff. And so I think we'll be able to get a lot further. The real issue is any other budget adjustments, but I'm not too scared about those either because frankly, again, we do have a lot of cash in the fund balance. So if we have to amend the budget, even a month after we've adopted it, we're okay. It's not, we'll be all right. But so we don't have to have a final decision on all these things like the streets and what we're going to do there and those kinds of things. Anyway, so the two proposed dates are
Yeah, August 24th and September.
And I think you know my preference is going to be to go ahead and have both of them. That way we can get it out, get it in the paper, get people talking about it early, and that way if we have misjudged on anything, it gives us enough time to work through that.
Can I make a motion?
Please.
I would like to make a motion that we set to have 2 public hearings, one on August 24th, 2021, and the official public hearing on September 14th, 2021, for adoption of the FY 2022 annual operating budget at the conclusion of the September 14th, 2021 public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
And both of them will be published in the newspaper so that people will be aware.
Good. Thank
Can we
you.
have a
And the
5-minute
website.
recess?
Yes, we're going to take a recess at 6:17. I said I was going to call out times.
times. I just saw that Susie said, I was like, we need a timestamp.
The live stream is still on. The live stream stays on.
Hey, guys.
My audio is off.
Yeah, right.
Sounds like
Age and abuse.
agent abuse. I'm going to have a talk with Mary. Stop abusing my friend.
Trying to find Scott's. There they are, finally.
Get our public hearings in on the right day and get it published by the 14th, or adopted by the 14th of September. We have to have it.
I knew they were there. I know I'd seen them. They were just, I installed this and I opened it and I said, okay, there it is. And I didn't look at it again.
In case anybody asks me,
Yeah, I talked to the paper.
Take a picture's worth 1,000 words.
It's also going to be on your pad, if you can get to it.
if I can get to it. I'm not too good with it.
gets more confusing every year. Oh, do it now, yeah. Well, we're lucky too that.
See, I kept looking in OneDrive going, it's not there, it's not there, it's not there. Even today, I got OneDrive back for the agenda. It's not there. It's in Teams. When OneDrive is slow to update, you know, it just doesn't sync very quickly.
Do you know anything about the fiber from Highway 90 to Microsoft? Do you know if it's operating?
I don't know, and I couldn't discuss that.
Oh, really? I'll have to contact the project manager. You know, they were supposed to run me a line to the, they did run a line to the lodge, to the hunting lodge at the ranch, to guarantee me I was gonna get Wi-Fi, internet. And I signed all the documents, but man, I just got thinking about it. He ain't done nothing yet. I wonder who's the holdup, if it's me or somebody else, so.
I don't know.
I was just curious as to if it's something y'all were using. I know y'all are. Hey, there's some contractors chasing another artery. Because I know one of the landowners just called me and asked me about how does the business go? She's clueless as to how that proceeds, you know, and they're already throwing numbers out at her. So maybe wait on that.
Yeah. Well, we got Herb back, but not Deborah. We lost her.
Thank you very much.
Y'all can start with that, or she can't.
We can or
No, we
cannot?
can just give her a second.
We can. Sure. She didn't have to be present.
Is that impolite to do that?
I'm not having a hurry you're in.
Well, we're waiting on Phil anyway.
Oh, there you go. I like your answer. You don't know, but if you did know, you couldn't tell me.
Yeah.
They're putting up another building over there. They've been putting up the arm and stuff. We're gonna get the roof up.
It's so cool to watch them do that. Have you seen how they put down like the highlights and stuff? They drill down.
I'm not focused on it, but I mean, I see the cranes up in the air, so, you know, like, every day it changes a little bit, or every week I notice a change, you know?
All these piers, and they dig down like this massive artery. It's like dozens of feet.
Yeah.
And they construct these, the rebar.
Oh, yeah, they put a
Drop
cage.
a big old cage down in there, and they pour it all in, and you got
If
this.
you thought that was fun, you should have been there when they built that 138,000 volt power line to the ranch.
Oh, I know, they do the same
The
thing there.
corner posts were 12 feet across and 35 feet deep. And they did it with a drill bit, a giant auger. Wow. Drilled them power footings for them power poles for
Had
the
them come over
ranch.
and dig you
One
a
of
shallow well.
them, one of them holes took 100 yards of concrete.
How wide?
12 foot wide and
35 feet deep.
35 feet deep.
I know someone drilled a 36-foot diameter, 280-foot
Pylon.
Wow.
That's a,
All right, we ready,
that's a
Deborah?
lot of steel.
36-foot. Oh, no, it was looking at the shaft.
Oh, okay, not a solid concrete foundation.
But yeah, that.
All right, we're going to reconvene here at 6:24. All right, next item is consider and take appropriate action on applications submitted for open seats on city boards and commissions.
We have two applications tonight. One is Marcus Fuentes that was here last meeting. He would like to be on the Parks and Rec, and we do have I have the roster on the back side of it. We have one full board position open. We still have two alternate positions open. And then also he was recommended by Mr. Connor. And then we also have Victor Ortiz. He came in and filled out an application for the TERS board.
Great.
And he does have, of course, he was a council member for 6 years, And he is also serving now as vice chair on a TERS board for the Petranco Ranch currently. So he is well aware of
What he's getting
the
into.
board and their, what that entails.
Great. I think both of those would be great additions.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
I move that we appoint Marcus to the available or open full board seat on the Parks and Recreation Board, and we appoint Victor Ortiz to our TERS board.
I second
That was
that.
position one.
The position one, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I second it.
Second.
Second it again.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, discussion take appropriate action on bid received for the City of Castroville 2021 street improvements.
So, I don't know if y'all want to address anything, but
And they have a copy of it.
we did get one bid. There are a couple of people who looked at bidding, and for one reason or another, didn't. We talked to Councilman King about that as well. When I say we, I'm talking about me and Devin. We're going to do a little more investigation with the people who didn't bid, find out why they didn't bid, and bring them back. But the advice from the engineering from K-Freeze is to reject all bids and go back out to bid. And so that's what the staff is recommending as well.
Great. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, please.
The letter says it's 700% greater. I mean, are we that far off in our estimate? I mean, it just seems like that's an awful large variance
Disparity,
from
yes.
what we expected. So I guess it says to me, we need to do a little bit better job of estimating
Or getting off.
before we put the bids out.
Agreed.
That's all I have.
It's an extreme disparity between the engineer and the provider, and yeah, I'd like to know why.
Do you want to address
Please.
that? That's the conversation I haven't been able to have yet, and that's why Michael's here tonight.
Yeah, good evening, council. On that item, you know, part of the normal process when we check bids, right, we do reference checks, and then we also do a bid evaluation. We're looking for things like this, where there's a number that's way outside the realm, right? We do an estimate, and there's going to be some plus and minuses. That is part of the process. That number caught our attention. So we went back through, one of these we always check is like, did we make a mistake in the quantities? Is something seen in there? And so what we discovered, that's what the letter says in there, is that what we found in there is that we had a quantity error in our as-bid quantities. And so that's part of the reason we're recommending rejection of the bid. We'll correct the quantity to fix that. We feel pretty good about our number was about $5 a yard. That was about a reasonable number based on a lot of other comparable bids. Right, I think the estimate was reasonable. We'll check all that with the rebid. We're proposing to, within about 2 weeks, we think we can go back out. One of the big pieces, we get that quantity updated, and then we're going to do some outreach. It's possible, we're going to talk to a couple of the contractors to see that had gotten the plans and specs to see if maybe, there's a lot of work out there right now. Maybe a little bit softer duration might have enticed a few more bidders. We'll also talk to a few others. We also think we can do, we talked to some local contractors and had advertised in the local paper. And we think we can solicit, there's some contractors down in Atascosa, there's some up in Kerrville, Bernie area, there's more in San Antonio. So we think we can try to encourage a broader pool of bidders to see if we can get 4 or 5 good solid bids this next time around.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a quantity differential, I'm seeing a price per unit differential. The estimate was at $5 per unit, and the contractor came back with $35 per unit.
Yeah, on that particular item, our number was approximately, the as-bid number was about a third of what it should have been.
Okay.
So you're saying, yeah, this is where that was. Oh.
Yeah.
But, so you're saying that the 3183 square yards, that actually should have been around 9,000, 9,500 square
I
yards?
believe that's right, Mr. King. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe that's the item, the specific item was there was a calculation error. That's, again, it's unfortunate, but this is why we do that bid evaluation, just to make sure so that we don't recommend approval.
He did a price per unit adjustment to accommodate for the difference in the actual surface covers.
Potentially, it could have potentially
volume.
resulted in an overrun of, we think it's a $280,000 project based on their numbers. They get through 2 streets, and we've used all the quantity up, and we still have a lot more to go, and so now we have a change order for the delta, right? And so we want to avoid that by cleaning up the quantity, rebidding it.
So that was just a math error on your all's part to
Yes,
come
sir.
up with this quantity. But do we think it's $5 times your 9,500, or do we think it's $35 times your 9,500? You
We
know.
don't believe that 35 is the correct number. We do
Okay.
believe that the 5 is a reasonable number for the scope of work.
So basically what it was is that because this wasn't like a text top bid where he's actually putting your quantities out there. This is just he puts a number at the bottom of the page, and that's where that is?
We did provide quantities, and they're providing unit prices for those scope of work.
Oh,
And
really?
so-
He might have divided his way back into the quantity just to give a number there that, I don't know. it's-
Yeah, we
it's
haven't
weird.
visited with him to confirm what he proposed, but again, the numbers as bid were what we have to go off of, and that, again, it represents a potential unbalanced bid, and we don't recommend approval because we don't want to get into a cost overrun scenario.
I certainly want to get clarification before we do anything affirmative, so yes, thank you.
And this, on the 8 inches, is that 8 inches you going down, taking it down, or what are you talking about there?
That's right. The
Okay.
existing section will be mixed up. Like we were talking earlier, Mr. King talked about a BOMAG, that type of reclamation unit that will mix up the existing base and asphalt material, add
Because
cement to it.
3 of the areas here is in my area, and it's been washed out. The base is bad, and they redid the top road, and they didn't do it right, and it already washed out and got screwed up, so that's why I'm asking.
Yep.
I want to spend the money right and do it right the first time instead of ending like we did with the one street, so.
Yeah, I will say, as part of the investigation process, we did brought in a geotechnical engineer. They did some borings. Like, we did about 2 borings
I
on
saw
each
y'all.
street.
I saw
And
y'all.
so we were trying to make sure, because some of the concern, right, there were some stories about River Bluff construction over the years, and we wanted to kind of confirm that we had suitable material under the pavement. And what we found is we generally had good material. We needed to add cement to it because it's the size of the material doesn't lend itself to just putting it back down and rolling it. But if we add cement to it, we think we can get a good solid road out of it and fix a lot of those issues that you're seeing up there on those 3 streets that are up there.
Okay, thank you.
The only quantity you all believe you're off was within the square yardage, like that your 173 tons of cement, you think those numbers are all okay?
We do think that number's okay. We're going to verify all of them, have the team go back, and we're going to double-check everything, but we feel, we did a sweep through it yesterday, and do believe that it's just that one, and it's a math conversion. The error was in a conversion from cubic yards to square yards, right? 9 times, the factor of 3 is the cubic yards versus square yards.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I think this is just a forewarning of how great the impact of inflation and the CPI is going to be on us all for the next year. It's going to be worse than we think.
Yeah, we originally, I think we referred to, we originally budgeted $190,000. We adjusted that up to like $250 recently, and now we've got our
300, yeah, when we get there.
Say that right, we started at 190, and then we adjusted it up, I want to say to 250, and then we got, what was this bid?
281.
282.
Anyone?
Yeah.
But
So that's another reason we'd like,
I mean, I think that's, it's a combination of things, so inflation, it's not necessarily cost of goods, that's, part of it's just
Part of it.
the regional demand for labor and for this type of construction. Yeah, and in some ways, I think what's gonna make it worse is all the ARPA funds. Depending on what cities do, municipalities do, we're gonna compete, going to be competing against each other for everything, whether it's civil engineering or the actual contractors or materials. It's gonna be interesting to see what bubble surfaces because of the ARPA funds and what they do for municipalities in the state.
Right.
So what concerns me is that the amount was missed. That could be devastating if they actually, I've had contractors in the past that would take exactly what you gave them and give you exactly what you asked for. And so I want to implore you to make sure that you're doing a better job of counting that stuff. I mean, that puts us at risk in doing that.
yes, sir.
And then, where all did we advertise this?
I put it in the Hondo paper now, where everybody, and then I also have a builder.com, I think, or there's a website that they watch for this, and they contact us, any bids that are projects we have out.
CivCast or?
Yeah, another one we're going to look at is, the CivCast is another, it's about $100 to post to there, and that's seen by contractors statewide. The plans are free for them to download, And so, and then we are going to do some more direct outreach to some contractors, again, just to, and again, we're going to try to figure out if it was just, we put was a reasonable duration for the scope of work, and maybe given the volume of work in the area, it's not a terribly attractive job in terms of it's a couple $100,000, it's on 5 streets. It might just, given the market, it might have been not the best thing they wanted to go bid. So we're going to try to visit with some of them to see what we can do, and not be something we can bring back to council in terms of future street work. Is there, maybe there's a threshold or there's a way to organize this that might gin up more interest, which would lead to more competition as well.
Great.
I do have one follow-up question. What is the timing for rebid? And the gentleman that did bid is doing work in Hondo. When did they offer that job?
We have not talked to them about, I've not talked specifically about the timing of that job. I could check and find out for you on that one. The time to rebid could be as early as next week. We just want, one of the things just could take a little longer is we want to visit with some contractors to see if the duration should be extended, if that would make it more attractive. And so just if we can catch some folks and get some good feedback before. The quantities have already been updated, so that part's the easy part. It's just, we'll double check everything. I'm pretty confident where we are now, but we'll double check everything with a fine tooth comb. And then just again, should we extend the duration to?
What's the duration, 2 weeks?
No, for bidding?
What do you mean, yeah? Are you talking
Oh, the duration of the contract. So I was talking about the duration of the contract. We had about 70 some odd days in there. Maybe if we made it 120 days, it might give them a little more flexibility to work their crews around their other jobs and make it work, So we'll try to improve that with the rebid.
Do you have a question?
Are we worried about getting into the fall? I mean, one of the concerns, my concerns of getting this done now is we're in the summer, and it's the best time of year to do this type of work. It also means you're going to have a lot of people tied up doing other stuff, but is that going to be the issue that we're going to get into the?
There are specific limitations on temperatures when we're laying down oils and doing chip sealing activities. That's something that's already in the specifications. That's something we'll take a look at. We should be able to pave, though, into early fall without having a lot of concerns there.
Sorry, I got taught off twice.
Councilman Sherhart?
I just wanted to ask, could we be notified when they can rebid? So we can kind of spread the word when you rebid?
We could do that. We can send a note to Scott and say it's out there on the...
Send an email out.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And so do you believe that the price that the one bidder came back with is, because they came back with a 281, almost 282,000, and what we had budgeted, what did we approve on that one? Do you remember the dollar amount that we approved?
Well, it was 190
At
originally.
190.
And I think that we warned you that we thought we were going to need a little bit more money.
Okay.
I think we thought it might go as high as 250, and then we got 281 as the
Okay, so do you believe that that is the correct number once the quantities are fixed, or you don't think that that's right at all?
We'll double check it, Mayor. We do believe we're somewhere in that 250, 280 number. I think 280 could be a little high. Like I said, we flagged it because particularly that unit price stood out as something out of the norm.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that we move forward on this quickly, wisely, but quickly. Okay.
Wisely, but quickly.
Yeah.
I got some that just caught my attention. The third line from the bottom on the price bid mentions sidewalk. River Bluff has no sidewalks.
It's not for River Bluff. It's for the,
Country Village,
it's in Country Village, and it's, what am I drawing a blank?
cul-de-sac.
Yes, Tumbleweed. I apologize. I'm drawing a blank there. It was for Tumbleweed.
Petersburg and,
It was for Tumbleweed.
Tumbleweed Drive?
If we need to replace some sidewalks in there, because we're changing the
Okay.
grade in there slightly, so if we need to replace curbs and sidewalks, we have quantity for that.
150 square feet.
okay, so that explains why it dropped, because it's not the whole project. Now, some of these areas have drainage issues. This won't improve any of that, right?
This is not, it's going to slightly improve some ponding on Tumbleweed. That's the goal, is to
I'm looking
help
at
that
River
drain
Bluff.
out. And then on Petersburg, to try to improve some of the drainage there, where that's on that street there.
I'm sorry.
In River Bluff, we're not going to, there's not a lot of change in grade there on River Bluff there. There's some level up.
Interesting.
There's some level up, there's some sunken areas that we're going to level up and bring them back to their original crown sections in there.
Yeah, I think the problem in River Bluff is what happens when the water tries to get out of the street into the drains, and the drains are all blocked up.
Yeah, we could visit about that. I wasn't aware of the drainage concerns there, so we could talk about it and see what we might do to raise the curb in some
We're going to be
areas.
doing a lot of
I just-
investigation on drainage. Yeah.
Well, the drainage, a lot of the drainage concern areas were ones that had utility projects, so it wasn't affecting those, but the straightaways weren't an issue. You know that Geneva area where there was some related to sinking,
Mhm.
we had looked at that, but
And those areas would be leveled up. Some of the sinking areas would be leveled up, try to get them back to, again, to the original crowned section that it started out with.
River Bluff, I mean,
I think River
River
Bluff is
Trail to
on
River
this.
Court,
Where's River Bluff?
Oh, she's talking.
yeah, I'm talking about the neighborhood altogether. It's all on a
But which
slope.
streets are you talking about?
So River Trail to River Court, then River Trail to River, you have River Trail to River Court twice. Then you have River Trail to River Valley.
Geneva Street to River Trail.
Right. So, and I mean, any of these, because
Well, there's 5 streets. It's Geneva Street, River Knoll, River Forest, Petersburg, and Tumbleweed.
Right, and I'm just seeing where they cover from where to where. And, I mean, I know from my side of it, those 3 areas all had water problems with the massive rains we had. I got videos from people. And I'm sure with the other streets, they had the same way with the slopes and everything. So I'm just trying to make sure we're not making the current situation that's already bad worse. If we're gonna build crowns up and stuff like that, I wanna do it smarter, not make it more difficult for our citizens. You see what I mean?
Yes, ma'am, and when I say build up the crown, we're going to restore it to what the pre-construction elevations were, right? So we're not changing elevations or anything, we're going to put it back to where it should have been when it was built, or where it was when it first got built.
Okay,
So we'll do it as that part. I couldn't speak to the recent storms, right? I don't know if they were exceeded the design storm event, right? Every one of these streets has a certain conveyance capacity, and then once it's exceeded,
okay, yeah.
Right, so I'm not sure of that.
Well, when you said building up the crown,
Sure.
that's what
yeah.
made me
Yeah.
concerned, is I don't want us to,
And we have some spots where there's some low spots and some
Oh, yeah.
curbs. There is some curb along there that will be replaced in some of those streets to put it back where, again, the typical 6 or 7 inch exposure,
okay,
and then fill those low areas up.
okay.
Well, I think this gives us an opportunity. I think it would be good for you to just get with Scott and bring up these concerns, make sure that we're not missing anything while we have the opportunity to do something. So I think that for now, we're looking at the recommendation from staff to reject the bid and go back out. Do I have a motion on that?
Do we need a motion?
Do we need a motion on that?
I make a motion that we reject the bid and go out to rebid and let staff handle that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Great. It's good discussion. I think that we need to take that offline, though.
We already did 12.
Yep.
Yeah, number 13.
You time and thing?
Oh, yeah, thank you. All right, time check at 6:42. We're going to do item number 13. Consider and take appropriate action on approval of the final plat for Bluff Estates.
Should be River Bluff Estates.
No, it's
Just Bluff Estates.
Kemp
Okay,
Place.
change it to
Yeah,
Bluff
it's Kemp.
Estates.
It was Kemp Estates, and then it changed to just
I know.
Bluff Estates.
Well, he warned us he wasn't going to leave it at Kemp Estates.
But it's tied on to River Bluff.
Yes.
We worded it both ways so you could.
Because the previous one, it said Kemp, so y'all would
Just let it go.
clarify.
They'll need it back.
No problem. Don't get excited.
So it is just Bluff Estates. I missed that, okay.
I need to get something to hold that.
All right. You got anything on this one? Or any discussion? You have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the final plat of Mr. Kemp's Bluff Estates.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item, consider and take appropriate action on approval of the final plat for Alsatian Oaks Unit 3.
I believe y'all have from the P and Z their recommendation in your packet.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any discussion? Do you have a motion?
I move we approve the final plat for Alsatian Oaks Unit 3.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passes. Oh, I didn't timestamp that either. All right, timestamp 6:44. Number 15, consider and take appropriate action on authorizing the city administrator to enter into a contract for the purchase of a Jack Kiosk.
So I know I got a lengthy email from Mr. Bob Lee. If you're listening, Bob, I do get your emails. I know that you're probably frustrated because I haven't called you or emailed you, and you probably feel unloved, but I do think about you a lot. It's just been very, very, very busy. So he had a lot of concerns that were legitimate, and I took kind of for granted that we have talked about this, but we haven't necessarily had the conversation in the meetings in great depth. What we're proposing, this is for the kiosk, correct? I don't want to get out of order, because there's two things. There's software and there's the kiosk. The kiosk is something that hundreds of cities have in Texas. I don't believe that there is another competitor. There could be, I could be wrong, but I don't believe so. I don't believe there's another group that does a kiosk for these types of payments that has any real market share in Texas. This is kind of, if not the only, definitely the largest one. And they've really got it down to a science, do a great job. The concept of the kiosk specifically, it's not so that people can make payments on their mobile phone. That's great. That's an advantage, and they can do that. It's really about replacing a customer service person with a kiosk. You know, something that someone can go up to, and what do they need when it comes to bill payment specifically, they can handle that kiosk. The reason I bring that up is because a lot of our customer service time, like an inordinate amount, probably 70% plus, is people paying bills. Just coming in to pay a bill. It's extremely inefficient. An automated machine could do a way better job. This machine specifically has a phone number, has an 800 number on call. It's available 24 hours a day. I don't know if we'll make ours available 24 hours a day, but if we choose to do that, they can go up anytime they want. They can pay cash, check, credit card. They can pay any utility bill. They'll also be able to handle municipal court through the machine, and eventually, once we take the next step, which was with the software, we will be able to do a little bit more. I want to try and do all payment interactions, if you had one, through the machine, if possible. Because for one, if I make it available through the machine, it will also be available every other method. I mean, on our website. I mean, it's just a means to an end to make sure that we're developing that level of customer service for folks in Castroville. The downsides. People aren't super, you know, there are people who, I think a lot of our older, you know, when you think about our older population, there are members within that population that's their only interaction, is going to the post office, or going to the library to pick out their book, or coming in to pay their bill. And I'm aware of that. I mean, I dealt with that in the prior cities where I've worked, where there's been a certain group that just absolutely did not that they couldn't, but they did not want to interact with the machine. They wanted to talk to that person. And what I've kind of talked to you all about is that comes at a cost, and whether we're willing to bear that cost and make all the other citizens bear that cost to meet that need. When there's other ways to meet that particular need, if that's the issue, there's other ways to get social interaction in through that, right? So that's ultimately what I'm really trying to do. It's kind of selfish, as I was explaining to Councilman Dyer earlier today, on my part, because I would like to free up specifically one of our customer service people to do more administrative work for the city. And I say it's selfish, but really it's about answering these other concerns where we have folks who have, I mean, people who haven't had the time to call, like Bob and others. That person would be able to do that on my behalf. I'd be able to arm them, train them, and they can handle a lot of that stuff. You know, I mentioned that I think to the mayor, one of the things that I would like to do with y'all eventually is get a review of my performance. And one of the questions that I've historically asked is, you know, how good am I at keeping things from falling through the cracks, from preventing people from calling you with kind of unnecessary things. Now, I know that some people are going to call you no matter what because you're their buddy, you're their neighbor, whatever. But I know right now, at least how I'm grading myself, I grade very poorly because I just don't have the resources to try and address some of those issues that take up a lot of your time that are really urgent but not very important. They're important to the person calling, but when you're looking at all the other things that you've tasked me with doing, you as a council, they don't rise to the level of urgency or importance at my level, but they are something that's really important to them. They just need an answer. They need someone that can help them get that answer. That's where customer service helps. So that's really the purpose of the kiosk. As far as location, we're proposing either the police department or the library. I think I like the library better for a lot of reasons. I don't want to encourage people to go loiter around the PD. Personally, it's just not a good practice. It's not a good idea. Whereas I do want to encourage that at the library. We want to get more attendance there, and if this is just one more reason to get people there, great. So there may be some remodel costs. I would anticipate no less than $2,500, but let's go look at the library and see what all it would entail. And I'll be doing that. There's kind of two options. You can drive up or actually go inside, and there's pros and cons. If you drive up, it's really convenient. But if you have to, so it's real convenient, but it's also accessible. It's open to the elements. You have greater wear and tear on the machine, generally speaking. It's a little bit less secure. Whereas if you do it inside, you can put cameras on it. You can make the lobby, open 24/7. You don't have to worry about the elements at that stage. I mean, like I said, there's trade-offs, and I'm willing to talk about those trade-offs. But are there any other concerns about this, or any other discussion you would have about the kiosk? We would pay for it with the fund that actually what I was thinking about was using the CARE Act money. This could have been used. The CARE Act money could have been used for this had we had enough at the time. Again, in a prior city where I was an interim, that's what we did. We used the CARES Act funds to buy a kiosk, and among other things, because it fell within that category. So I'm suggesting that with the refund of those monies that we've already spent, that we're getting back, those are unbudgeted. It's about $168,000 to use a portion of those to buy the kiosk as a one-time purchase. So I talked about source, I talked about maintenance costs.
Councilman Chair had a question?
Well, I may be out of turn here, but Scott kind of alluded to that already. If you're gonna put it anywhere, inside, outside, where it's accessible, I thought about you're gonna have to have a security camera on it. You already alluded to that. Maintenance costs $7,000 a year.
Yeah, it's 20% of the purchase price, and I have done my best to negotiate with this gentleman in the past, because I think that's kind of ridiculous, but it's what he charges everybody else, and everybody else pays it, and so I've got him to negotiate in other areas. We've got the best, I can tell you this, I've gotten the best deal for Castroville for both the kiosk and AdCom for the software.
Well, maybe
than
he is
any
the
other
only
city.
game in
Yeah.
town then.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just, we've negotiated in other areas, he won't negotiate on that.
It's a
rock
machine, it's
solid.
gonna break.
Annual maintenance costs.
Update hardware, software, all that.
That's his date and all the
It's
software.
just part of his business model.
Is it a firm fixed price contract? Or is it an open-ended contract?
No, it's
In other
for,
words, well, I'm actually, I know that, I guess we should hold that for the next item, but for the hardware, for Jack himself, it's a firm fixed price we're
yes,
paying.
Yes.
yeah, and these are two separate items. So just for the kiosk, which I'd recommend doing regardless of the next item, just for the kiosk, that's a firm fixed price. He's quoted us. It's good for a certain period of time, and then the maintenance is also firm and fixed for a period of time. It's 5 years.
In your sheet with the details for Jack, you don't say it there, but in the other sheet, we're going to discuss in the next topic, you say that the city staff has spent 2 months or more reviewing this proposed purchase. And I'm assuming that they've done a cost comparison between what we would pay for Jack and what we would pay to improve Encode that we've already got and have a lot of money invested in. So can you assure us that the staff has looked at that thoroughly and that it's very clear in your mind and the staff's mind that the lowest risk is to go with the option you're recommending?
Well, yes, I certainly, it's a recommended option, so we feel like we've vetted it to the level that we feel comfortable making that recommendation and not ending up with egg on our face. But there's two separate things. So the Jack kiosk is not offered by Encode. It works with Encode because it processes utility payments that go into the Encode system. Encode is the software. Think of it like as Excel from Microsoft. It is the software that's added that's available through Tyler Technologies. So Tyler Technologies is the parent company that offers a bunch of different types of software, in addition to Encode, at varying prices. You can spend a lot of money. We aren't spending a ton, I think $54,000 a year with Encode. They have other modules we could spend, but the kiosk does not replace Encode. We would still need Encode. It really has those two things aren't related at all. The next item, it is. This item, this is a plus. It's adding something. It's an additional cost. Where the cost savings come into play with the kiosk specifically is as we grow. So I'm not making the argument, nor have I ever, that that this is a cost savings at present. The kiosk isn't. It's a use of one-time funds, and it's an increase in customer service. But it will allow us, I think, to provide greater customer service to folks, not just through the kiosk itself, but by freeing up time to address more pressing concerns and other issues that are, I know for a fact, falling through the cracks. Where I mean, I've got a list of people. I've got people on my phone right now that are waiting for a call back, and Mayor Lee's one of them.
That's not good.
Yeah, and I know that. I want to address that, but yeah, I also have to prioritize. And,
No, I
you know,
understand that.
if everything's priority, nothing's priority, and I have family, and I want to get home to see
One
them.
more question before you go down the road.
Yep.
As much as we pay for this machine and the software, surely we're getting every penny that somebody puts in there, right? Or,
Yeah, so they charge, we get every penny of what's owed to us. They will charge a,
handling fee?
yeah, handling fee.
Convenience
A
fee.
convenience fee. That's part of his, again, his business
Do
model.
you know what that is?
$3, right? Or,
Well, the court is 5%.
no. Just on the, oh, is that on the
Yeah.
kiosk?
Oh,
I'm not on the software.
okay, sorry.
Not on the software.
For payments.
Yeah,
is what
like-
I was
No,
looking
just
at.
the
I
process.
mean,
It
if
says
I
on
owe
the-
$100 on the city bill,
Yeah, there's a processing fee, but it's not very different from a credit card processing fee.
so
And
we're probably
the
paying
same,
3% maybe?
yeah, but not for checks or cash. That's
Oh.
only for, it's only for
Just
credit
for a
cards.
card.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No further questions.
So there's no transaction cost from the kiosk for
Let me
cash or
verify
check
that.
payment?
Let me verify that.
Fine.
Yeah, 'cause the-
That's another reason why I need a PC.
on his form, it has at the bottom, it says AdCom gateway fee is $1 per credit card transaction.
Here's- I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
Here's
think,
what this is.
But that's AdCom.
AdCom gateway fee.
Right. That's the separate software.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Give me a question.
That's it.
I got a question.
yeah, this is software though. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I've had several of these. I don't think there is for check and cash transactions. I don't think there's a processing fee for that, but I'll verify that and let you know. Anyway.
People can't pay online their utility bills now.
Yes, they can.
Yes, they
Now you
can.
yeah.
So
Okay.
they
I
can
don't- as you
do,
I just admitted that my wife pays all of her utility bills.
yeah,
So-
And if you use your credit card, it's 5%.
Right, but you can also do a bank
Not
debit
5%?
card.
Yeah, auto draft.
yeah, you can do auto draft
Yeah,
through
do
bank.
auto
There's a
draft.
lot of
So you can
people
do
are
auto
reticent
draft,
to
you
do
can-
that for a lot of reasons, and I understand that, but you can auto draft through us. You can also set up for auto payment through your own bank. There's a challenge with that right now. In fact, today, we received, I don't know, 50 or
stack.
60 checks that were paid through auto draft through their, like, you went to your bank, and you went to your bank, and you went to your bank, and you all set them up, and you did them when you were supposed to. On the 13th, you set it up to pay for the 20th.
They didn't get there.
The 20th is come and gone. We've just now gotten the checks. And it's because they came from Chicago, Illinois, from a processor that all these banks use as a third party. So one of the things that will help with the city is the timeliness of these payments. We'll get them quicker, but, I mean, that's
How do you fix
not a
that?
big deal. I don't know that you can,
It's an
Todd.
auto draft.
Yeah, you auto draft with us,
Yeah.
you auto draft directly with us, and then that will fix that, but I understand people's reticence to do that, and people like what they like. I mean, maybe if they're banking, I'm gonna say
They're doing
Bank of
it
America,
all over
they
the
like that bill payment, they don't wanna have to go to you, and they wanna do it all in one place. So I understand that, but it is a problem for the city. And we were, just for your information, all those people would be hit with late fees. Because technically, we did not get their payment. Wasn't their fault.
Right.
But in the past, the way we operated, we would hit those. I've instituted the policy that we do not issue late fees on those, because the person did the best they could. They acted in good faith, they set it up, it said, they told their bank, I want this paid to the city by the 20th. It wasn't, they didn't drop the ball, their bank did. And I don't feel it's fair to hold them accountable for that.
I agree with you.
Yes.
On this, though, when we did do the demonstration, the
That's
court...
not yet.
No, but I asked
Okay,
the cost of the credit card, because they pay in court with the credit card that we have now, it will be 5%. The utilities will be less. We did ask that question
5%?
for court
Court
tickets.
only?
Yeah.
But
So it's a
these
little more
are,
what we do now.
so that's just a credit card fee, which, okay,
It's a
so that's if they pay
convenience
credit
fee.
card.
It's a
Well, and that's set by
convenience.
state law. They're
Okay.
just taking advantage of what the
Yeah.
law allows them to do.
Oh,
So right now, for instance, I know Mary pays off the internet. I'm assuming a lot of people do. Rarely do we go and bring a check here. How many people physically come and pay the utility bills?
It's a great
at the
question.
thing?
Um,
Because if there's only
Quite a bit.
Yeah, no, there's a bunch. Deborah might be a better.
100 a year, a month, 100
Or at
people?
least, well, I say, especially when it comes due before the late fees are asserted on there, I know they'll have a line out sometimes, especially with the COVID, standing.
I know 2 or 3 that do.
Yeah,
There's
I don't,
several.
I
There's
don't,
several.
told me that.
Phil, it's a question I should have had an answer for before tonight, but I don't,
That's a very good question.
I know it's more than 20 and less than 100 probably. I mean, it's in that range.
So if we're talking about 100 a month,
Well, probably twice a month, depending on, because you have the late fees and then you have the cutoff date. And that's when we see the most.
I guess,
But
one
what-
thing, running the 36,000 plus that much per month, it just, are we talking about hundreds of people or just few? Because I think a lot of people, like Bob brought up in his email, was, they normally pay online anyway. So, for people who can't get out, and I realize not everybody can, but that would, the other thing is, you mentioned you don't want to put it here, you want to put it at the library, at the police station, but any way we build it, they want an enclosed room to put this here, right? Because their thing says,
Out of
can-
the weather.
outside enclosure.
It could be either one. What I asked for was one that would mount through the wall internally, because that's what I've used in the past, and I think that's what works best.
Oh, okay.
But you can do it either way.
So-
And cities do. There's plenty of examples of drive-ups versus walk-ups. I prefer to walk up, but, I mean, it's up to you all.
Well,
We
to
can look
me,
at both
I guess the best example of this would be the ATM there at Broadway Bank, because, you walk up to it, and it's in the wall, as you say, and it's under, so I guess something like that, I could see would be easy to do something like
And
that.
the library does have ADA compliance on the ramp to be able
Yeah,
to.
so that would work on that. And I think that answered 2 of my questions. Okay. Next one.
All right,
I
Councilman
don't have
Garrett?
any questions, thank you.
Councilwoman
I
Martinez?
have no questions.
So the only thing that I'm still not clear on, you said it's about 70% of our time right now is payment processing?
Yes, because you also deal with the call-ins and some other stuff. And so this doesn't fix 100% of that all at once, but the other things I'm trying to do would. So part of that's, so there's all these things work together in concert with one another. One is that. One's improving our website to provide greater answers to people. So when we look at AMI specifically, we start reviewing, that's that automated meter, not reading, AMR is reading, but AMI is the actual delivery of the information to the end customer, to the city, where it's a constant feed. Because you can do AMR by drive-by, but you only get it once a month. But if you do AMI, where it's actually updating constantly, you can get really good data, and a person can be alerted on their phone, hey, we think you have a leak. No, I'm running a faucet. Yeah, don't worry about it. Leave me alone. You can set those parameters. So that'll help knock out a lot of the calls. But again, there's the other thing is what we're going to do physically with the people. I'd like to. I talked about this earlier, been some months ago now, about a reorganization within City Hall, moving people around, playing musical chairs. I'm still not entirely sure how that's going to shake out, but I know one element of that is to move the utility billing person from here to Public Works, and then have the person that remains here be a customer service person, that's not related to utility billing. That's really more for general customer service related issues, whether it's garbage or other issues that they might be dealing with. So part of this is also helping kind of train the populace on who to go to for questions and answers. and to make sure that the highest volume of types of questions we address with, that we put we automate that process to prevent the problem to begin with. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, that's
Well,
what
so
I'm trying to do.
but what is the other, if she spends 70% of her time on that, then what's the other 30%? You said it's phone calls and what, I'm just trying to
Yeah,
understand, what do we actually miss?
Again, you're calling my bluff, but I wasn't bluff. But I mean, my point is, I don't have great data to look at and tell you, well, this is what it is. I haven't gone in and done a work study with her and sat down and said, okay, how much time have you spent doing that? How much time have you spent doing that? I just know anecdotally from being in this office for the last 6 months, a good portion of the time, the vast majority of it is utility billing and dealing with that level, those types of issues. But Deborah may be able, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Well,
I know you've actually worked up there and filled in during COVID and that kind of thing.
part of it, not just the utilities, anything to do with people coming in for permits, you know, they come here to pay for that.
And that would continue.
Well, for a short period of time. I want to get that moved to the kiosk and or online. And I think part of the getting it moved to the kiosk is getting it online. So that's the first step that would happen. And then once we have all the support that we need in place to have it online and have all the forms where they need to be, et cetera, then that will be the catalyst for getting it onto the kiosk, if that makes sense.
And of course, also, if they have new services, you know, she handles that. She does, a lot of times, help somewhat with court questions, especially if the court clerk's in, you know, court or out. She helps on that somewhat. What else?
The pet licensing won't go on the kiosk, though, because she issues the
The
license.
tags and such, they,
They
right.
do have a kiosk that does that, but we're not big on it.
No.
Let me
This guy
start
kinda has
making
a
it
kiosk
done.
for
Of course,
everything
she also answers the phone and answers questions and gives us, you know, of
directs
course,
calls.
sends them to us or, and it's not always city questions. There's a lot of people that it's just general questions on where they're needing to go. So, I mean, that probably.
So you're saying that she
10
would
or
stay up
15%.
there, and the way I look at it, this is I think that you're looking at it as customer service overall. How do we improve customer service? Part of this is by implementing something that handles a large volume of very manual tasks that we're paying somebody to do, who is very talented in getting other situations resolved. You want to leverage that person specifically to help us address better customer service, increase communication to the people that are calling. I spend a lot of my time actually with the phone calls that I get, just directing people to go to the right direction. Let's get them into the right process so they can get the answers quicker through the people who are actually handling it through staff than by going through me. So I applaud your efforts in getting here. My biggest concern was that it was software dependent, because I'm not totally sold on making that change yet. I think that we've got a lot of due diligence to do to actually make that change. So if it's not dependent on that, and you're saying that, you know, I trust your experience, I trust your recommendations when it comes to personnel, and I applaud you for trying to make things better for folks, so I think that's really good.
Two other questions. One is that this is for utility bills mostly, but you're thinking about paying this out of the general fund in the fact that this is refund that's coming back to us or whatever, and not out of the utility.
Yeah, they'll buy one every 5 years out of the utility. They're going to they'll pay the ongoing maintenance. We'll pay the upfront costs out of the 35, but then they'll pay the $7,300 a year or whatever.
Okay, and going back to this other thing, in in this lady that you're talking about here, it's the one,
April.
That'd be April.
April.
Yeah, April Kilmer.
And she's the one who answers all my questions when I call about trash and everything else. Yes, and
Usually.
she's very good. And so she's going to handle all those calls, and when I have to come pay the burn permit fees and things like that, because everything's coming over here, because you get the permit there and then you come over here.
I want to change that.
Right, and I realize
I
you
think
want to
that is
change
very
it, but I
inefficient.
guess let's say it's 100 people a month.
Mhm.
That works out to be about 4 people a day are paying the utility bill. If it's 200 a month, because it's
Maybe
20
more,
days.
At least.
Yeah, if it's 200 a month, and break that down to 20 work days.
That's 10 a day.
Yeah,
I
so
know it's not more
that's
than
an hour.
1,500.
Yeah, so I guess it would be kind of because again, I don't think you're going to free up a lot of this person's time. It just 10 payments a day, that's an hour. But I guess that's something you all are thinking of. It's, so I guess I'm just a little nervous of going and spending a bunch of money on something that, and I guess these machines have been around for a long time.
If it makes you feel better, just think about it as spending the Fed's money.
Do what now?
If it makes you feel better, just think about it as spending the Fed's money.
Right, well.
You really aren't. I mean,
But
it's
we
money
could,
that's going
we
out
could
the
spend it on something else also, but the other thing is that, for instance, you say you want to put all the permits on,
Yeah.
so like the burn permit, come in for the burn permit or for the building permits, and so we're going to try to put all of those, but that won't
Not
work unless
necessarily
you
all
go
of
to
them
this.
through the kiosk, although it probably can handle that. We'll have to look at, does it make sense? Because you don't want a menu that's 8,000 pages long, but you can, I mean, I know that the mayor's got a lot of experience with Logic and how you deal with Logic, interactive systems that
Yeah.
get you through those pages pretty quickly. So we have to look and see if it makes sense to do that. But at a minimum, part of this improvement process that's focused on hardware and software really is about changing the way we interact with customers and giving them greater tools to interact with us, and us giving them greater information when they're going to look for something. And so that's going to be a developmental process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but I'm going to really be challenging our staff to look at how they interact. I think that probably a good example of that, and not, again, trying to play favorites or anything else, but Devin Frederickson with Parks, he's been doing a lot of this type of stuff, looking at, well, how can we do this? How can I make the information more available? How can I make it more accessible? I want to take the types of things he's been doing just in Parks and do it for the entire city and make it available through websites and online. And I'm not saying, that, again, that approach has been perfect or without its own flaws and challenges, but we can improve and do things better than we're doing them today. And there's, especially as we look at increased demand for our services, again, my goal was, how do I make the general fund more predictable in a cost standpoint, more sustainable from a cost standpoint, and sustainable in terms of growth? How can I set us up so that as we grow, we don't have to add people on top of people? We can use the people we have now for the foreseeable future. And this is my answer to that. Whether you agree or not is up to you, but this is part of that. And the kiosk is just one facet of it. We'll see how it plays out, but for me, it's way less expensive than a person, way less. The 35 plus, I mean, once you hire a person, you got to pay them that salary every year. You're going to hire this person basically, and pay them what, a fifth of what you hired them for, with no benefits, and they're going to work 24 hours a day and be accessible by phone. And I mean,
Now,
pretty
let me
cool.
throw this wrench out there.
Yes, ma'am.
So Councilman Dyer had another question.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to separate these two actions, because if you approve one, you have to approve the other one. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to approve one of them.
No. These are separate. The kiosk happens regardless. It can't. I have not. The software change we're talking about next. I've never done that before with this company, and it's completely separate. The kiosk.
So the kiosk comes ready to use, we don't have to buy any software.
No, we don't have to buy any software. It comes ready to use.
But it's, and I don't know if I can talk about the next one because I can't. Okay.
Well,
I'll just have to come back because
it's the same manufacturer, and so it will integrate if we are to upgrade into their software system, it'll integrate, but it'll integrate with Encode anyway. All the other cities that I've worked in have used Encode, every one of them. All the other cities I've worked with have had a kiosk from this company. So it is a completely separate purchase decision that is not reliant on the next item.
Okay,
Sorry.
so let me throw the wrench
Martinez.
out there.
Please.
Knowing how technology has its ups and downs, and connectivity has its ups and downs in this area, when it's, say, internet is out, because it's going to have to connect somewhere, where is it going to direct people to go to? Is it going to direct them to go to here? Is it going to direct them for court stuff to go back over here? For permits? You see what I'm saying? Where's going to be the local belly
Sure.
button when the systems are down?
Sure. So I think belly buttons are always going to be the same. If it's a public works matter, it's going to be public works. If City Hall's with City Hall. When it's down, it's not going to direct you anywhere because it'll be down. It'll just be.
Well, like
sitting there
ATMs
screen.
say unable to, it's
Yeah.
unavailable, please go to
Yeah, if it
wherever.
has power, it can do that at least. But you know, if you're out without internet, it'll be an issue. So one of the things we are looking at is redundant internet solutions. You know, we've got fiber to City Hall. We've got to look at redundancy once we get the fiber installed. So that'll probably be next year's budget. Well, this year, we're going to handle the fiber. Next year, we'll talk about a redundant system of some kind. The same thing, I'm looking at the same thing at the library, taking fiber over to them. They're really, really close to the location, so the cost should be fairly minimal. So that'll help greatly. But yeah, you're right to be concerned about that, and that's actually one issue that I know some places really were. Y2K was a great test of this. For some folks who were around back then, people they had relied so heavily, they couldn't do it by papering.
Yep.
Depending on the type of thing we're talking about. So we're certainly going to have those types of challenges, and that's part of the society we're living in right now, is the more reliant we become on technology, the more handcuffed we are to that technology when it fails. I mean, it becomes an issue. But I think that's just something we have to be cognizant of and plan for, and that's part of that emergency planning that you and I are going to work on. So.
The way of the new world.
How much is shipping, handling, and taxes going to be in addition to the $36,863?
I think that's the delivered cost.
Says
But I'll have to double check.
they're not included.
Yeah, I'll have to
Not
check.
for them to travel out and set it up. So they don't do the actual installation, correct?
No, they just have it shipped here. It really is plug and play, that you power it on, plug it into your internet, and you're good to go. It's all tested on, before it ships, it gets tested first.
And, because I've never gotten a ticket here, court costs. A person goes before the judge, you owe $200. Then they come out and they come to the window to pay it.
Well, if you're in court, you're going to pay it right here.
Okay, so when they paid the court clerk the money. Well, no.
We have a credit card machine in here now.
Here, but if we move this to the library, we'd still leave the credit card machine here for those people that are going to pay it,
Yeah.
and they could write their checks here, or do they have to travel over to the library to do it?
So one of the great things about the software we'll talk about in a minute and some of the ancillary services is that it will, when you get, at the time you get the citation, there's a tickets on the go that we're looking at, some other stuff, so this is in the next deal. But anyway, the kiosk, you'll be able to pay your citation there if you want to.
Well, no, I mean, you're allowed
We'll
to
still
pay
be
it
able to
here.
Yeah. We aren't getting rid of
Okay.
it.
Right, what you're going to talk about next, there will be a credit card machine, and when they come and speak to the judge and they make the decision on what is charged, it would still be in person.
But
So
Or
they're
they can
paying it
bring
in
it
court,
later,
not
or-
in-
they'd be paying it in court and not over there, but even if we turn down the software thing next
They
time.
won't have to leave here and go pay somewhere else. They can
Okay,
come right here.
either way, they
Or
can
if
do
they
that here.
want to do it later, because some people do, they don't have they can go over there and pay it because they will have the
Whenever they want to.
information.
Okay.
This Paul gave us 2 cents?
I've heard everything I need to hear.
Oh, well, I just wanted to add a little more to it. I mean, I know this is technology moving forward, but, man, I struggle with some of this stuff. When I call, my dad still believes that Siri is a live person.
They act like it.
She's not?
Yeah, no, and so if I get belligerent with Siri, he's on my tail. I'm telling you. You don't talk to a woman like that. No,
That's a good man.
I know that's the direction we're going. I mean, the kiosk is just part of it, but being able to do something without a live person on the other end, I struggle with that.
Well, there is a number, that's the thing, I want to stress that. There is a number you call, and you don't talk to a machine, you talk to a live person.
Really?
Is that their live person or our live person?
That's their live person.
Their live person, I see.
They help you strictly, I
I
mean,
guess that makes me feel a little
they won't be able to
better.
talk about our local, they'll have some information, but they won't be able to talk about our local ordinances or any that kind of thing, but they'll be able to help them with the machine and process their payment. Whatever they're trying to do in front of that machine, they'll be able to help do that.
I push zeros till somebody on the other side I can talk to.
Yeah. Hear you.
I can't stand that. That's just my 2 cents.
All right. Any other discussion?
Where we're at with this. What about shipping and handling? It says it's not included.
Yeah, I don't, it's going to be a minimal
It
amount.
should be.
Yeah,
Customer contract.
yeah, I'll find out.
I don't know where we're at with this.
Do you guys feel like we have enough information? Because there's some,
Talk about that in a minute.
There's some additional items on here, so there's the installation, there's the shipping. I think that those are going to be minimal, but it's not a full weighted cost. Are you comfortable with making a motion at this time, or do you want more information first?
Is this a vote?
I'm asking, do you want more information? Do you feel like we have enough information to move forward?
I think I do, yeah. I can speak for me.
All right, then do I have a motion?
Sure. I will move that we authorize the city administrator to enter into a contract for the purchase of the Jack Kiosk.
All right, do I have a second? Okay, lack of a second, motion dies. Do we have more discussion, or do I have another motion?
I'd like to suggest that we look at this a little more. And if you want me to wait till you get into the next one, I can tell you my reasons, but I can't do it because it's not on this sheet.
All right, do you guys want to,
Well, I think doing exactly what Herb said, but I think some of the questions we raised tonight, I think would be a little bit more comfortable.
Well, can we review what those questions were so I can make sure that next time we bring it forward, I've got your answer?
Yeah, you mentioned you were going to kind of do a timeline with your staff to see how much this actually would free up per time.
Okay.
And because I think one of the most telling things is black and white, if this would free up $36,000 of her time, it'd be a no-brainer. If it would free up, you know what I'm saying? How much will this free up per time to assist in other areas? And I think that would be one big thing. How many people actually will, yeah, and then how many people come up and actually utilize her, realizing that she's still going to have to take all these phone calls and everything else on non-payment issues. But actually, how much time a month does she use? Is she related? What's her kiosk duties? That's it. So what are those all going to? And if you can come back and kind of give us that, then I think it's easier for me to make my, to make
The other
And
things that people want specific, I know that we need to look at the location and the cost.
Contractor installation cost,
Yeah.
our expense. What is it going to be?
I think something like you mentioned in the hall, if there was a place in the library where you could do this, you could bust through the wall and do that pretty easily.
Yeah, my experience has been around $2,500, but it really depends on, I mean, now we're talking about inflation, I'm a little afraid to mention the amount. We come back with $4,000 or something,
The
but
price of wood
usually it's
and
been
all that
around,
fun.
yeah, it's usually been around $2,500 to get it installed. Getting it delivered, it's, $500. I don't know what the actual delivery fee is, but it's somewhere between $150 and $500 to have it delivered.
I think if you could actually show us, like, okay, well, this is where we're gonna put it, it's gonna be in the library, and it's gonna be about $3,000, because if it's, instead of just, it's gonna be one of these two buildings, because it's not so much, where it has to be installed, you have to say, this is where we're gonna put it, because it can't just go out in the middle of nowhere.
so,
They have two different models on here too, though. They got an outdoor model and an indoor model.
Right. The price is not terribly different between the two. What I've requested is an indoor model that goes into that fits through the wall.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
I would say, honestly, I am, generally, I'm in favor of this because it's one more step to creating, I want to give better customer service. I think that it's a good thing. I would even trust staff's experience on, if Scott is telling me he can free up enough time to be able to provide better customer service, I'm totally willing to support him doing that and trust his judgment on that. I mean, we hired him to do exactly this. He's got the experience to do it, and he's had experience specifically with these. And you've answered a lot of the questions. The dependency on the software I had an issue with, but I think that we don't have a total view of the exact plan, so I think that we would be prudent to go and get all of the details about what is the installation cost, what's the fully vetted cost, where is it going to be, what is our plan, what is our internet plan, how are we connecting it to the internet, and what's our plan for if it goes out, what is the response time to fix it, because if it's going to be down for a week or a month because they can't replace it, and what is the service cost on it. So I think that we just need to get more of that detail together.
The service cost.
So if it goes down, and say they've got a total system failure, like the CPU goes out, they've got to do a full replacement on the actual computer that makes it work. So how does that happen? Do they send that to us, we have to install it? Do they come out and, do they fly out and take care of that? Do they send it to a service company? How do they do that?
Yeah, so they're all in-house, I know that. And their operations are up in the Dallas area, so they'd either drive or fly down, and they'd probably just set a tech in there to fix it. They may, depending on the what goes bad in it, if you're talking about like a full, like the whole thing's fried, well, then they'd have to send us a new machine. But that's, I'll find out. So your question is somewhat warranty related, so
Yeah.
I just haven't had
That
those
was my
types of
question,
issues,
too.
but I'll ask I'll get a full
If there's
dialogue.
anything attached to a warranty.
Yeah, what's the repair cost? What's the other SLA, the service level agreement on how quickly they'll come out and fix it? Are there any costs that are not included in this? So I just think we need to get a better picture of the overall, like, business plan with this. I think we're really, really close, and again, I think that this is moving in the right direction, but I think we need to get that detail.
I agree with you.
Okay, so then we can just, can we just skip this item? Right, let's just skip this item, we'll come back at another time with more information. Next item is consider,
Time.
thank you, 7:25, appreciate it. That's teamwork, I like it. Consider and take appropriate action on, authorizing the city administrator to enter into a contract for the purchase of enterprise suite of software provided by AdComp Software Company.
I'd like to say something.
That's the one we didn't pass.
Absolutely. Do you want to let,
I'll be happy to wait if you want.
Scott, did you want to introduce this, or you want to go right into this?
I don't care. What is fresh on his mind, let him speak his piece.
Go ahead,
Well,
please.
I'm very concerned about this item. I spent a whole career doing this, building software and being responsible for it. And this is not the kind of agreement, in my mind, that bodes well for us. I look at this agreement and I read all the fine print that's attached to it. It's all slanted in favor of them. Binding arbitration, everything has to be written and signed by both parties. What if they refuse to sign? Everything has to be agreed to in advance. We don't even have a development period. We got between 9 and 18 months. That doesn't really bode well with me when you're building software. Software is a pretty precise thing, and they should be able to tell us with a high degree of certainty when the software will be available to be tested, how it will be tested, who will evaluate the test, what are the criteria for successful testing. None of that is in here. This is the formula for a bad relationship to only get worse. And I can't support this at all. Sorry.
Well, so what kinds of things would you like to see in the contract that would allow you to support it? I mean, you'd want to see spelled out who's doing what, how that. I will tell you, this guy is a little bit like the guy we met with on the pool thing, Phil. He's just culturally, he's a very astute businessman. He's built this huge business. I don't know how many millions of dollars it's worth because he processes a lot of payments and all that. And gets a chunk of that, but he's still a person who's just an inventor at heart and a problem solver at heart. And so he doesn't worry about those types of particulars, because this is, in this case, in this instance with this software, it's new. I mean, he has not built this software, the enterprise system before. All the ancillary pieces, and that's what I was going to talk to you about, I'm very comfortable with. So the tickets on the go, I sent you in the packet, there was a website you could go to kind of look at what they offer, and they've got dozens of different kind of modules, if you will, or products, and some of them kind of compete with each other because some cities wanted these 5 things but not these other 3. They didn't care about those, and so he's got these different iterations of similar software. But I'm very comfortable with those because there's hundreds of cities using the various software that he's had, and I've seen how he's developed it. He's very responsive on a customer service standpoint. I know that you and I talked about, kind of the architecture, the safety of it, the preservation of the data, how that data would be accessible to us, and what would happen if they weren't there anymore, and all those issues. So we kind of ran those to ground to a certain extent, to as much as we could, and I think got to a place where we felt a little bit more comfortable with it. So I certainly have my own issues or reservations, but despite those, I saw the upside potential as far as looking at his other work, kind of evaluating that side of it. And it's that has given me the confidence to be willing to say this is something we should at least look at doing. Because the risk to the city at this standpoint, Herb, we are agreeing to buy it, but we're also saying it has to meet our standards. So if it never meets our standards, one of the things that's missing in this agreement is what do we owe him?
That's right.
And go ahead.
Very clear that he has the right, if we terminate him, if we get fed up with his efforts and terminate him, he has the right to charge us termination costs, which could be equal to or greater than the cost of building the software. I've seen many contracts that get terminated and the company ends up making more money by the time they take you to court because they say you didn't treat them right. Now, I'm not saying we would do that. I'm not insinuating that at all. But
well, we can certainly write that in the contract where the termination cost cannot exceed the cost of the software.
A number?
I think
it's...
And that was something that I recognized that was missing that we probably need to put in there. But and I think it'd be ludicrous to try and agree to something higher because at the end of the day, the purpose of this was to find something that was advantage to the city. Now, the approach, so what you have is you do have in your packet a cost comparison of Encode, what we're currently paying for, and what he would supplant that with. And the cost saving is between $6,000 and $8,000 a year. So we know that if you just took apples to apples and said we're going to do everything that they do, and here's the cost, it's a cost savings. But for Encode to actually do some of the things that they'll now be doing and integrating, we'd have to pay a lot more than what we're paying today. And that's one of the things I know that Mayor Lee had a question about is, okay, well, have we looked at other options? Yeah, we have. It's a lot more expensive, and it's still clunky. Like, I still don't like the interface, the graphic user interface that they utilize through this system, and the programming language that you use to build it is different than what Encode uses. And I think screenshots was that something that you'd recommended, or someone who I talked to you talking about? Yeah, I can show you screenshots. So that's something they have to bring back. The screenshots.
It seems like they're unwilling to accept any risk. They want us to take all the risk.
It seems like they had an attorney draw up.
And, well,
And did we have an attorney review it?
the point I'm
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to make is a company that prides themselves on writing software should have confidence that they can build you the software that you've described, that you want, and they can meet the test criteria that's written down as part of the agreement that says, this is the criteria we will use for testing. And if you meet this criteria, we will accept it. If you don't meet this, we won't accept it.
Well,
and that's not our fault then. He can't come back to us and say, well, you got to pay us for all this. We would say, no. Your product doesn't meet the criteria. We're not paying you for it.
Well, and that's, I think, one of the things you're relating to and referring to is a process I've been through before, which is where you lay out, here's what I want the software to do. And in fact, I have a friend who does that. They go in and they have an internal software group, and they represent the customers within the organization to do that review. And then they go back to the other group and they make sure, whether it's internal or external, that the software that they're developing actually meets those needs, and then they test it and they go back to the same group and they act as that liaison. We're going to do that, but we do not have a set list at this present day that we can give them and say, or that we could put in a contract for that matter that says this is everything we want it to do. And part of the reason I'm reticent to do some of that is because when I look at his development in the past, he's on, like on Tickets on the Go, I mean, he's on iteration 19 or 22, and all that's because of the feedback he gets from his customers that say, hey, what if we did this? And he says, well, let's look at that. I'll do that. So he's very responsive, way more responsive than any group I've worked with in the past. So I'm very encouraged by that aspect of it.
Have you considered, instead of buying the full suite right off the bat, I know you say it gets you a better rate. I'm not arguing that. But wouldn't it perhaps be wiser to prioritize the improvements we want, and maybe we buy the first one and see how it goes.
Yes.
And then if it goes well, we buy the second one. And then maybe we buy the next two because we're happy with it. But we don't get in a situation where we bought 8 things and the first one never gets developed and now we're stuck with the other 7.
Well, let me give you a couple of reasons why. I told you earlier I negotiated the best rate possible. The rate we're getting is not the off-the-shelf rate. We're getting a lot of discounts on all those other pieces. We're getting those discounts because I agreed to entertain this idea of doing the core software, which he hasn't done. So I want to clarify again for everybody that he's done the utility billing, he's done the payments aspects of it, he's done payroll, he's done the tickets. I'm trying to think. I mean, if you look at software, you see all those different packages. He's done all those. They're fully developed and fully functional. What he hasn't done is the fund accounting portion. He may even have a budget piece. I haven't looked at that before. I've never been interested in the budget pieces that people offer. I do my own. But my point is he's developed all those other pieces. There's like 20% of it, 15 to 20% of it that he hasn't done, he has to develop. The reason that I don't want to take the approach you're talking about is, one, I think it'd be more expensive because we'd be adding. I mean, I was approaching this as a kind of a puzzle pieces. The kiosk is one piece, reorganizing the city hall is another piece, and how we deal with that sort of thing. Dealing with our phone system and how many phone calls we can handle in an emergency and that kind of thing, that's another piece. Allowing and developing the website controls to allow us to process payments and process permits and stuff electronically through our website, that's another piece. Another piece is our communication, our full 411 system. Right now we're using the county. That's going to be another piece of this. His system is capable of doing all that. Once you give him your cell phone number, he'll let you know anytime there's an alert for a bill that you need to do. So all these things, including the AMI we're looking at, have the potential to integrate into, I joked about it being the master control system from Tron, but that really is, for me, the closest proximity to what we're talking about. It's the ability to take all that stuff and put it under one architecture, one software. So that's why I'm looking at this. But I also recognize the risk, and I think your comments are valid. We've got to maybe iron out some of these issues and go back to them and say, hey, this is what will make our council feel more comfortable about the contract. But so what we'd have the benefit of is doing kind of a hybrid of what you're recommending. So I'm still going to go and grab the pieces that I'm most comfortable with, and we're actually going to implement those first. Those would come on with the Encode system. They'd be fully implemented, fully integrated. We get all the benefit from it, but we pay 3/4 to half of the cost that someone else would pay, because at the same time, we're on an ongoing basis working with his team to try and develop the rest of that software.
I think that, so I trust, the one thing I do trust is that you've got great experience with this company. You've seen them in the good times. What you haven't seen is in the bad times. And I think what Councilman Dyer is talking about is the worst case scenario. And part of our responsibility, collectively, is to make sure that we are looking at the worst case scenario. I don't feel like we fully vetted that out. I don't want to spend, I don't want to cut this short, but I also don't want to spend too much time on this, because I feel like this is something else that we haven't completely vetted out.
Yeah, just help me know what your questions are, and I'll bring it back.
And I think it is looking at, if you guys are all right, let me hit this and then let me know if I've missed anything.
Go ahead.
So
I'm on board.
I think we look at the contract, make sure that our attorneys have taken a look at that and find out where we have risk. Let's understand exactly where our costs could be. I don't want to spend money on somebody else to develop their system that if it doesn't work, that we still have to pay them. I get that he needs to be paid for it, but you're helping him improve his product. So making sure that we are not at risk for them not delivering. If they lose their key developers and they just can't finish it, I don't want to get stuck with that cost. So looking at where are our risks, and this you do really well. Look at where our risks are with this and figure out exactly what could get us. What is our worst case in every different situation, and let's deal with those. And then let's put together a roadmap for moving forward with it, including an emergency, what would you call it, a back-out plan? If the worst case happens, this is our emergency recovery plan, and this is how we'll this is how we'll retain our records. We don't want to lose, I mean, part of this, one of the worst-case scenarios is losing the records that we already have, losing that history, losing that data, because we just don't have that in place to do that, like, immediate failover. Did I miss anything?
Well, one thing that caught my eye is on the Annexure A, excuse me, under, it says, assumptions that AdCom absorbs credit card merchant processing fees. Well, under utilities, it says the cost of $3 per $100 per credit card transaction will be payable by the consumer. It doesn't say the client, it says the consumer.
That's a 3% convenience fee or something.
So that means
For $100.
our people will have an added cost to their utility bill if they pay by credit card through the system. That's the way I'm reading it.
For me in August, that's $24 for my utility bill in August, $800. So I'd be paying $24 if I use my credit card.
Right,
But I wouldn't use my credit card.
but some do.
And there is a convenience fee now on what we have in code.
Oh, I saw that part, but
Yeah.
this is in addition to
Yes.
this convenience fee, and then like for the port side of it, it says for the consumer, if they pay per credit card, it's 5% a fee for their credit card.
Yes.
So-
Currently, I believe we have a 3%.
Right.
And so, and that was the question when I asked to see, and it is 5%.
So I can give a convenience fee breakdown of what they're proposing versus what we're paying now. Some of that's already in place, and some of it isn't, and so I'll highlight what's in.
The only other thing is, there's no data security discussion at all. There's one sentence in here about data security, but if
Information
this is
security.
connected to the internet and hackers get into this software and into the city accounting system, what is going to be done to prevent that? How are we going to feel comfortable? Because those products probably cost as much as the software is going to cost. The products you have to buy to protect yourself from the internet. They're very expensive. You have to hire a lot of consultants. They have to be integrated, and that's not discussed. So I think that should be put
I
into
know
your
we
plan.
talked about it.
So we did talk about that. I know that there's a gentleman we should discuss this a little bit more with, but in looking at the way that they've got their system set up, they are on an AWS backend, or they're on AWS Cloud Services. I believe that the platform is built on .NET, and so there are some, I'm a lot more comfortable with them writing on AWS than if they were doing their own servers, their own, co-location or whatever. And then with the transmission being SSL, I think that gets us to a point where I'm comfortable with it. Again, I think that we need to look into that, just to make sure that there's no additional risk exposure there. But I think we're exposed in other greater areas than that, but I think that's valid. And again, it's looking at every point where we could have a massive failure. I don't want to be responsible for that massive failure. I love being responsible for improved customer service and, taking care of people better, but that one thing, if it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong to me. And I just, no good deed goes unpunished.
This is great feedback, and
Yep.
I kind of knew that there could be some of this discussion, so I'm glad
think
to
it-
have it. I appreciate on both of them. I'll come back and hopefully we can.
And
answer all the
you guys bring up a good point about hackers. They're constantly evolving, getting smarter and smarter. Who's going to be liable if the system gets hacked? Is it the city, or is it the company that develops and maintains the software?
What's our security protocol today? What's our standing with Encode? Who's responsible for that? That's
Yeah.
a great question.
So right now, we think we're, people who pay with a credit card, they're being charged that.
There is a convenience fee
A
somewhere.
convenience, if you could get back and tell us that, and then how many people are paying by credit card typically, and how many people by check? Because it looks like there's a convenience charge for an e-check that we also pay. But if that's 1,500 people, 1,500 accounts, and 500 of them are being charged $1 more, then that adds up, over the year also. So it's a little bit, I like the idea that this could save us a lot of money. I like technology. I like this whole idea. I think there's just some questions that need to be ironed out.
And one of the reasons, honestly, that that during your interview process before you came to work here, that I was very impressed with, is that you do look at technology to make things better. You look at ways for us to become more efficient, which is what we will need going forward. I just don't want to, I want to move very slowly and carefully on that. So, yeah. And again, this is a good process. I think this is a great discussion. I think that we're looking at the right things. So I think that we gather this information and look at the points where are at risk, and we'll come back and visit this. Does that work? Okay. If anybody has, if you think about anything, like I had thought of the software dependence just as we were talking. So if you think of anything else, make sure that you get it to Scott so that we can give him good input on what our concerns are based on our individual experiences. And let's make sure that the contract is reviewed by the attorney to find out where we're at risk, at financial risk. All right?
Good.
All right.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, good conversation. I don't think that anybody's done anything wrong. You're moving forward and we're working together.
No, I hurt my feelings. This
All
is
right.
good. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so next item is Councilman Carey, report and discussion on paper streets by Councilmember Paul Carey.
I'm prepared to do this. I just didn't know if we wanted to spend this time at this hour. It's 7:45.
You want to put that off for the next meeting?
We still have a bunch of stuff on the agenda.
Okay. Are you all right with that?
I'm fine with that. I just, we've got a long ways to go to yet
You
tonight.
got a lot of pretty pictures.
There are a lot of pretty
Ready.
pictures, but it's going to take some time.
All right.
So let's see if we can do this at a more convenient hour.
Thank you. All right.
Do y'all want to consider having a special meeting just for you all? No, seriously, just to talk about this? Calling a special meeting to talk for you, basically it'd be a workshop to look at this.
Might not be a
Again,
bad
it'd be
idea.
open to the public because it would be you all, but it really would be, the intent would be a workshop for you to look at paper streets.
That would be a good idea.
And it would allow any interested parties to maybe be present as well.
Those
Right.
questions.
Yeah, I like it. Okay.
Like
We
in
wouldn't
the
post it as a
budget.
town hall.
Small
we'd
town
post it
hall,
as a-
yeah.
Well,
Just a regular,
You wanna-
special called meeting.
Maybe a
I
special-
would say a special called meeting.
Yeah.
It's one agenda item.
One agenda item and, yeah. So,
It might only have to be
let's do
one.
that.
No, I tried to send it.
Okay.
to them at 124 megabytes.
On staff reports, did you want to go over anything on that?
I do have a couple of things I'm just going to call out, and then obviously if you have any questions, go to those. Although, where'd it go? I'm now looking for mine because it has my notes on it. Is this it? There it is. All right. Under airport terminal building repairs, those should be starting very, very soon. All that's being handled through our TML insurance. And we basically have a guarantee for the costs. If there's no run cost, because we're using their contractor, the one that they selected and had bid, it's going to be covered under our insurance, which is good. The fence line's been cleared. We're still going in and clearing some very large hackberries and some other trees out. I did hear from one of the property owners nearby who was concerned about stuff floating through the fence and getting onto his property.
It doesn't make a dam if you got drainage issues there.
That wasn't his issue. Honestly, I don't know how much is from his own property, how much is us, but we'll get out there and clean that up. We still have to address the Bill Menard property with the drainage, that side. That hasn't been done yet, but we are looking at tiering that, terracing it, and using riprap. We're having a little bit of issue getting riprap out there, but that'll be the next project once we get the fence line. I still don't have a hard and fast date from the farmer as to when he's going to do his fence, but we've been pestering him about once a week, saying, hey, get this done. I know he went out and had his contractor give him a price again, but I don't know where that went from there. Under community development, Church's Chicken, just want to put out that yes, that big empty space that used to be a gas station, it's, in the cleared level, will be a Church's Chicken. Yes, that means we will have Bush's Chicken.
Thank goodness, I love
Golden
chicken.
I hope you do. And Bill Miller's Fried Chicken and Sammy's Chicken. I mean, we'll have
We got chicken all over.
Little did you know that the abbreviated Seville is Chickenville.
Yeah, we're gonna have to call it that. If we could just get a Chick-fil-A and a chicken breast. Or in a Popeyes, we'd be in business. And then there's Cane's,
The red
Raising
beans and
Cane's.
rice.
You know, just
Oh,
don't
yeah.
say
Guys, there's 4 or 5 more.
Don't say it.
Possibilities are
What
endless.
And that's for sure.
Chicken dinner.
KFC.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll all go on a diet. Country Real Estates is progressing. Code enforcement, I wanted to call your attention to a schedule change, because due to some complaints we've had about things happening on weekends. Now, I will say this is the only city that I've done this in, which is pretty impressive, and it's all due to Curl. She's just a fantastic human being. I'm so impressed by her. But she's going to come in and work Saturdays. So we'll have a modified schedule Monday through Friday too, so that she's not over 40. She'll come in and work on Saturdays to address those issues and make sure that she's catching the bad guys that are doing things that people are complaining about. That'll be one Saturday per month, I think, actually. What it was, one Saturday per month. That's what we'll start with.
Randomized, I hope.
The summer camps in the library are over, but they do have a summer reading program. We haven't had as high participation, mostly due to COVID. People aren't coming in, but we are encouraging that. If you've got folks who have little ones, please encourage them to get part of reading. If you aren't an educator or haven't known someone that is, I can just tell you, speaking on their behalf, getting kids to read during the summer there's a direct correlation to their performance in the school year the next year. I understand not everybody's a reader, but getting these kids to read over the summer is very, very, very important to their academic success the next year. So please encourage people to do that, and our library is there to help them do that. Parks, the 3-meter diving board was installed. We had a recent discussion with Evangelos Stefanos Topoulos, or I can't say his last name, but really, I went and looked him up afterwards. The guy is just amazing. He's won like 14 different awards nationally, internationally, plus some gold, some Olympic medals. He's an Olympic diving coach. He used to be at the largest aquatic center, I think, in Texas. They're in San Antonio. He left there. They didn't fire him. He said, look, I don't like the level of management that they were putting on him, I guess, micromanagement. He wanted to be able to do his thing his way to a certain extent. He came to Castroville, and from everything I can tell so far, we're blessed to have him. I think it's really amazing the level of diving program that he's trying to put together in Castroville, Texas. So to the extent we can, the city is working with him to make that a success. We want to be fair and not do what for him and we wouldn't do for soccer or any other group. So we're approaching it from that vein, but very excited to see what's going to come of that. I will say this, for any parents that are listening, he did state that his kids, the kids that he's trained, he has said several of them. First off, diving is one of those niche sports. Colleges need the points. They need good divers, and they're willing to pay full ride scholarships to get those good divers. So he's had, half a dozen of these kids that graduate through his program get full ride scholarships to Yale and UT Austin and all these other places. One of his divers is Jordan, don't know his last name, I saw him on TV the other night. He's in the Olympics right now and has a great story. He's from UT Austin. He's Colgate to sponsor him for his smile. He's such a cool kid, but anyway. Enough about that. Streets, ditch cleaning is ongoing. We haven't given up on, I just let you know, we're still cleaning ditches and doing drainage work. County project. The county project on the streets program, their portion, the part we didn't award tonight, it's about 80% complete. So that's over there by the school district. It'll be just in time for school open. And that's it for me on those reports.
Couple questions on, it's okay? Please. On your streets, I realize we have a yearly contract, but when that comes up, I think we need to talk about street sweeping because I follow right behind them in the old streets, but we can just realize, well, I'll be raising that when we.
I did tell Devin that we're probably going to have to come back and do a report based on our conversation, just to evaluate, is it worth it?
Yeah, because again, I realize for instance, your neighborhood with curbs, if it's done right, it's worthwhile. But when you don't have curbs,
Yeah.
Yeah, I passed it along.
yeah.
Gravel redistribution.
So the other thing is, I had somebody call me out today, one of our citizens, very concerned about the new fence at the park. This is after yours and my talk, Scott. But he says, in accordance to the National Transportation Advisory Board, you don't put fences right up next to streets when you're supposed to walk in the street facing traffic, which means when people walk into the street, because we don't have sidewalks, that's the side they're going to walk on, but there's no room for them to walk between. And he's real concerned that someone is going to get hurt because of the fact that you have traffic going both ways right there on that narrow thing. And there's no room for people to walk off the pavement because the fence is there. And he also brought the same thing. Our ordinances say you can't do that, but I realize that the city can bend its own ordinances, but the city would never
That's
allow
not a
any.
public street.
Do what?
That's not a public street.
No, but it's a street, and the reason you put the ordinance there is for a safety reason. So you don't
Sure.
want people to have to walk into the street
Sure.
if you're supposed to walk. So, and he brought this up, and I didn't bring it up, but it was, in fact, he was supposed to come here tonight and citizens' comments, and I don't know why he didn't. But I thought because that was on.
I can think of a few reasons.
Huh? Do what?
I can think of a few reasons, but go ahead.
Because you talked to him? Oh,
No, because it's a long meeting, and who
Oh,
wants
yeah.
to come and speak in public and all
Well,
that?
he would have been at the beginning.
Yeah.
But that was
It's
one
all
thing,
good.
he was real concerned that it is.
I've got that in his item. We'll
Yeah.
we'll address that in a future council meeting to come and just
I
talk
gotta
about
go
it.
see the fence.
And then
It's nice on your
your
fence.
June monthly animal control report, you were going to get back to us and tell me what we're actually doing with our animals. Have you been able to look at that yet? If not, then
Well,
future meeting.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't. Again, it's a list of things I'd like to go get done.
That's another
I
one
did
I
talk
keep
to the
getting
chief
asked.
about it.
Yeah.
He offered to take some pictures. I said, I really need to go look at the facility and take my own pictures. It's on the survey. We didn't talk about it as a, what's my, SLA, service level adjustment.
Oh, yeah.
But that is definitely a candidate, I think, for an SLA. But again, I don't want to put, I do want to provide you advice, and certainly when you come up with ideas, I want to be able to help you vet them, just like you just did with me with these contracts. But at the same time, I don't want to be accused of saying, well, this, Scott's got his own list of stuff, and he's pestering about those. I need your help to come up with that kind of stuff and tell me what really matters to you. The survey will help us do some of that. It is one of the items on the survey that I'm asking about specifically, so we'll see how people respond.
And that's why I was kind of more interested to hear back, because I don't know what we're doing with our animals now. I think the city does have a responsibility to take on that task. But if we're just shooting them all and throwing them in a trash can,
That's not what we're doing, I promise.
and I don't
Please
think
don't
we are.
ever say that out loud again. That is not what we are doing.
but are we taking them to somewhere, or what are we doing? Because I have no idea what's going on with the
Yeah,
animals.
I'll lay out what we were doing.
Okay.
Blue, our,
I knew what we were doing 5 years ago. I don't know what we're doing now. Taking them to-
we've got an animal control officer
No, you
that
go
follows
on
all
the
of
line
our.
and adopt
If you go
them.
look.
What's that?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be available, but I'd like to ride with you if you go look.
Okay.
I've never seen it.
Well, I'm going to take, that's for our purpose of taking pictures. I'm going to take, if I need to, I'll
Oh,
take a
there you
video,
go.
but that's the idea is, I'll take pictures of what it looks like and what we're doing with it, and we'll lay it out for you.
If it's the same building, I know what it looks like, but if they
I do
moved
think
it
we have
somewhere,
a
but I don't know,
euthanasia
I don't
policy.
have any idea what's
Oh,
going on.
yeah, yeah.
We take them to the vet.
To the county, or to the vet, up
We
to
have a
the
vet
vet, sure.
euthanizes.
I don't want to make it, we are not a no-kill shelter type place. I mean, we do have a thing that we follow, but I also don't want you to think we're doing whatever he said. I'm not going to have you repeat
But
it.
if, 5 years ago, you could go online and you could see a picture of a pet and you could adopt it from that, and.
Right.
Is all that still going on? I don't know. That's what, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll do kind of a full, here's what we're doing today, here's how we operate.
And
There
other
was
than that?
something else. It was fence, there's parks fence, animal control, and something else.
Oh, wait.
Street sweeping.
And then you also in your report, you were talking about Public Works, and something else you all were going to come back and give us an update on the,
Status of project.
well, the status of the dams at the sewage treatment plant, because, about 6 months to a year ago, it was going to be $3 million to rebuild them or something, and we were the engineers, but just the status of what those engineering reports, because I know the TCQ.
That's part of the capital plan we're going to do next month. So that's one of the items that we're going to fully vet. And you're right, Sheena. I mentioned it during my meeting, and honestly, I don't know where. I know I mentioned it several times for this agenda to do a capital planning update, and we didn't. There's not much of one. I mean, obviously, streets you know about. River Bluff, you were at the meeting, and we talked about that. I have to look and see what other major capital projects we had, but I know there's ongoing negotiations as part of the development for capital projects, where we're doing changes to sewer and lift stations and adding water and that kind of stuff, but I don't think that's the kind of stuff you were worried about. It's
Well,
really the streets and River Bluff. And
We were looking at putting generators at our wells and everything. That way, if we had.
Did we actually fund that, though?
It was.
No, I don't think
No, that
we
wasn't
funded
funded.
it.
There was a couple of generators
Some of it was the budget.
for this budget.
There was?
Yeah.
I
It's,
thought there was.
yeah, there's generators.
I know we
there's-
bought one, you're right, I think we bought
Public
one shortly
Works.
after I got here.
Right,
Well, for public
and see, and that was all
Building.
part of it, so what's the status of everything we've set up and said, yep, go, these are
Okay.
approved for this year, where are we at?
So that'd probably also be some of those equipment purchases we made, so I'll do that. We'll get some pictures
And
of our sign.
I think that if we take it, I know Herb had sent over a format for the CIP, which is really similar to what Scott's plan is, so I think that that format is really good, and then everything that is committed, we just get a little bit more detail throughout the year, because we get questions about these, and part of this is us making sure that we're keeping things on track to actually get
Yeah.
done. So I think that would be a good improvement for our internal communication.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. We got anything else on that, or you want to move into, I'm going to
No, I'm done, unless you have other questions about the report.
All right, so the next item is executive session. The city council will meet in closed session under provisions of the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, entitled Consultation with Attorney, and Section 551.085, entitled Deliberation regarding Economic Development Negotiations. The items are West Side Story, Alsatian Oaks, Establishment of Economic Development Corporation, Clean Sweep. The city council will meet in closed session under provisions of the Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, entitled Personnel Matters, to deliberate the employment of the city administrator, and that is city administrator's contract. We're going to go into executive session at 8 o'clock.
I didn't get up while rattling at the last one.
Stoved up.
I'm telling you.
I was gonna say.
Really?
Yeah, I saw you over at the game, I just didn't realize that was your daughter.
Yep,
So,
yep. Living in Donley, that's where I've been spending a lot of time lately.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are they still playing?
No, they're finally done, but,
Tell me about this all.
his dad's trying to get less involved in the operation. That's my weather system so that they can say, show up,
Thank you for being here.
Oh, no problem.
So now that we've gone into executive session, you can lock the doors. Yeah, you can lock all the doors.
that sounds good.
power button off twice?
Twice? What are you pushing hold?
Power off. Press.
Scott, is that CCC
That's
briefing
power
going
key
to
to
be in the
cancel.
next meeting? CCC briefing that I was going to give. Is that going to be in the next meeting?
I mean, you guys talk about when it can be worked out. I think the time to do it, survey responses and talk about the conjunction of all this. That's going to be probably second meeting in August or first meeting in September.
Let's talk about,
Actually, we could just
guys, if you don't mind, let me
distribute
open the meeting back
briefing
up.
to everybody and let them read
And
it.
we'll discuss that in that last item.
Okay, we're back on.
Well, it's been
Okay.
good knowing you. Thank you for my opportunity to work with
That's why I waited until then.
All right, so we're reconvening in open session at 9 o'clock straight up. Next item, consider possible action or give direction on items legally discussed in executive session, and I don't believe we have any. Last item is discussion on future agenda items. So what Councilman Dyer was talking about was wanting to give the presentation on the CCC. I think what Scott was recommending is that we wait until we get through some of what other people are like when we get the survey responses.
But I'm going to put, so I'll create I think if there's not already one, there might be a CIP folder, but if not, I'll make one in that SharePoint, and I'll put his presentation in the SharePoint. He was asking if y'all can go ahead and have it. Well, absolutely. So that way you can go and look at it, and any other CIP stuff, I'll start putting in that folder.
Just put version 3 in there. There's version 2, which I gave to the
You not work
parks. Just put it in version
They want to
3.
read.
Okay, do we have any other future agenda items that we have not done?
I made a list earlier
No.
when we talked.
The ones I already gave him during the meeting.
Okay, perfect.
Put paper streets on it, so.
Yep. We're going to do that on the specially called. Okay. Anything else?
Do y'all want to try, can we set a date for the specially called? That really helped Deborah.
Or,
Do you know when? You know you want to do that next
No.
week?
no,
No.
no.
When do we
Wait,
wanna do
I'm out of town next week.
1, 2,
He's out of town next week.
it? When do you want to do it?
3 weeks?
I'd have to look at my calendar, which I didn't bring with me.
All right,
so
never mind then.
Okay.
Maybe
I will
we
contact
can look
you.
at the calendar and I'll send you a few dates and maybe you
Yeah,
can tell me.
yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm going to Marfa, so.
Oh, wow, more lights.
Take a picture of the lights for me.
I'm going to my daughter's wedding.
Congratulations.
So we're adjourned? We're adjourned at what time?
We're adjourned at, we're through the thing. We're done. 9:02. We're out.
My daughter who lives in Marfa was engaged